Chapter 1004. This is the ancient devil recorded in the ancient books of the Holy Mountain. Under this pressure, be it Pai Xiong or Duo Lan, both of them felt their scalps tingling. After all, Ning Fan's devil might was not just the pressure of the ancient devil bloodline. It was also fused with the immense baleful qi that he had accumulated throughout his path of cultivation. Even though both of them were heavenly geniuses of the Holy Mountain, they did not have much experience. How could they have seen a devil like Ning Fan who had walked out of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood in their lifetime? Even Pai Xiong, who was not as shrewd as Ning Fan, could sense the dangerous qi coming from him. Cold air kept coming out from his back and cold sweat appeared on his forehead. Didn't you say that you want to teach me a lesson? Why haven't you made your move yet? Ning Fan looked at Pai Xiong coldly and took a small step forward. Instantly, Pai Xiong, who was arrogant just now, retreated a few steps in panic like a frightened cow or sheep. That was the instinct of a prairie man when facing danger. Senior, you must be joking. How would I dare to teach you a lesson? Pai Xiong forced a smile while retreating. However, the pressure in his heart was unprecedentedly heavy. He could not understand what Ning Fan meant. He thought that his rude words might have angered this person. Then he recalled what his junior sister said about silencing him. The tightened string in his heart suddenly broke. Is this person really here to kill me? This thought kept popping up in his mind, causing Pai Xiong's eyes to suddenly turn ferocious. There was actually a hint of madness in his eyes. The fear he was enduring was too great. Under the extreme fear, he actually had a trace of madness to fight for his life. Instead of being killed by Ning Fan, why don't I make the first move and gain the upper hand? I might still have a chance to live. At that moment, he even forgot his master's warning. Suddenly, he punched his chest and his face turned as pale as paper. He opened his mouth and spat out a ray of black light directly at Ning Fan's face. Then he turned into a ray of light and fled without waiting for the result. Ning Fan's eyes narrowed. He did not expect that Pai Xiong would really dare to attack him. He pointed his finger at the ray of black light, and it turned into a spinning black bead, falling steadily on his palm. The bead seemed ordinary, but the power it contained was quite incredible. If an ordinary immortal venerable's cultivation base was sealed, there was a high chance that they would be severely injured if they were attacked by this bead. Ning Fan was not afraid of this bead at all, because of his powerful abilities. Originally, he wanted to let Pai Xiong and Duo Lan go. But now it seemed that even if Duo Lan wasn't mentioned, there was no need to spare Pai Xiong. If they dared to make a move, then they must have the courage to bear the consequences. With that thought in mind, Ning Fan flicked his finger. The black bead that he had just kept flew across the sky. The black bead returned to where it came from and hit the back of Pai Xiong, who was fleeing in panic. In an instant, Pai Xiong's bones turned cold with fear. Save me. As soon as the black bead hit his back, the huge sword on his back melted into molten iron under a strange black light. Then his clothes, the flesh on his back, and even his entire body turned into blood under a burst of black light. A rancid smell immediately spread everywhere. It only took the blink of an eye for it to melt into a pool of blood. Pai Xiong, who was at the pinnacle of the shedding void realm, couldn't even withstand a single strike from the black pearl and died instantly. The power of this black pearl isn't weak. Ning Fan casually took away Pai Xiong's storage pouch. Then he checked it with his spirit sense and frowned slightly. Is this man really the tomb guardian of the Holy Mountain? In the memory of the Triflame Armored Guard, the tomb guardian of the Holy Mountain was quite wealthy. This amount of wealth is really too little. You killed my senior brother. Duo Lan suddenly felt sad. Even though she looked down on this senior brother of hers, and even felt a little disgusted with him, she still grieved for him after witnessing his death with her own eyes. She clenched her teeth in anger and glared at Ning Fan. So what if I killed him? So what? He used that black pearl to sneak attack me and was killed by it instead. He only has himself to blame. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have minded sparing his life. Ning Fan said with an expressionless face. The cultivation world was not a place that could be reasoned with. If his cultivation base wasn't strong enough and he was directly killed by Pai Xiong's black pearl, who would he be able to reason with? You don't have to quibble. You killed my senior brother and the disciples of my Chu Lai's lineage. I, Duolan, will never let you go. Never. Duolan said with tears in her eyes. In that case, I also want to silence you, huh? Ningfan looked at Duolan coldly. His merciless gaze was like a basin of cold water that splashed Duolan's mind. She must be crazy. She actually lost her mind. Because of her senior brother's death. She actually threatened to kill Ningfan, who was an immortal venerable. He was a ferocious and cunning ancient devil. If she enraged Ningfan, she would certainly die a horrible death just like her senior brother. No, before I take back Chu Lai's lineage, I must not die. Don't worry. You are one of the saintesses of the Holy Mountain. Killing you will bring me a lot more trouble than killing Pai Xiong. It will also be harder to cover up. I won't kill you. I heard that your great humble clan has an extremely evil secret technique. As soon as Ningfan's voice fell, Duolan's face turned pale with fright. You. How do you know about the 3-in soul locking technique? No. You know that I am the saintess of the Holy Mountain. You know a lot of things. You have searched the memories of those Triflame guards. Duolan panicked. She wanted to run away, but she suddenly felt numb and weak. She could not use any of her magic power. Then, she felt the world spinning. Only then did she realize that her cultivation base had been sealed, and she was being carried on Ningfan's shoulder in a humiliating manner. Put me down. What are you going to do to me? Let me go. I am the saintess of Chu Lai's lineage. I am. Ningfan pointed at the plucking technique again and sealed Duolan's words. He was the successor of ancient chaos in the first place. In addition to the suppression of his cultivation base, it was naturally a piece of cake for him to deal with a female cultivator at the peak Shikong realm. Then he opened his mouth and breathed out devil flames, burning all traces of this place. Just now, he carried Duolan, who was in tears, and left this place in a ray of traveling light. Not long after Ningfan left, the space in this place suddenly fluctuated strangely. Then, several strange black skeletal guards with their bodies burning with black flames suddenly walked out from the cracks in the space. The leader of the group had an early thought fragmentation realm cultivation base. His empty eyes swept across the battlefield, and he let out a cold snort. The cultivators of the void flame are indeed the weakest among the 3 flames. They actually managed to escape after hunting down a mere Shikong saintess. If I, Shi Yan, was the one who took action, I would definitely not fail. Well done, well done. There was a hint of schadenfreude in his tone. These skeletal guards who suddenly appeared left very quickly, leaving behind only the scorched land that was scorched by flames. Ningfan left the 4th grade continent all the way to the 3rd grade continent. After walking around for a while, he found an extremely secluded cave dwelling of an ancient cultivator. He directly tore open the space and entered it. This place was one of the places where he had searched for treasures previously. He had already searched through it. The reason why he entered this place now was not for anything else, but to execute the 3-in soul locking technique on Duolan. He had obtained this technique from the memories of the Triflame guards. It was extremely common in the Great Bay clan. Most of them knew how to use it. It was similar to the mental seal used by the cultivators of the 4 heavens, but there were some differences. Secret techniques like the mental seal were used to control the opponent's life and death in order to make them submit. The 3-in soul locking technique of the Great Bay clan, on the other hand, did not control the opponent's life and death. Instead, it controlled the opponent's mind. For example, a person who was struck by the mental seal would choose to submit because he was afraid of death. On the other hand, a person who was struck by the 3-in soul locking technique would consciously obey the orders of the caster from the bottom of their heart. Even their inner thoughts would be controlled by the caster. The profundity of this technique was even greater than the mental restriction spell. Unfortunately, this technique was only useful for cultivators of the Dabii tribe. It was useless for cultivators outside of the tribe. It was said that the herb gatherer saint used to control the herb slaves and disciples under him. It was a method that was specially made for them. Because of this, though the 3-in soul locking technique was a low-leveled technique of the Dabian tribe, because it was created by a saint, it was extraordinary. However, the 3-in soul locking technique had a lot of restrictions. Firstly, The caster had to possess a certain level of medicine soul power, and the medicine soul power could not be too much weaker than the caster. Secondly, every time this technique was used, the foundation of the practitioner's medicine soul would be damaged. Every 1,000 years, this technique could only be used once. If it was used for the second time, the medicine soul would collapse, and all the pill refinement techniques would be wasted. It was precisely because of this second restriction that very few cultivators in the Daibei grasslands would use such treacherous methods that harmed others and themselves. Now, however, he had no choice but to use it. Today he had killed the Triflame Guard and the Tomb Guardian of the Holy Mountain, Paixiong. Moreover, Duolan was a witness. In the memory of the Triflame Guard, Duolan belonged to Chu Lai's lineage of the Holy Mountain. She was the saintess of Chu Lai's lineage. Her status was extremely noble. Even though the Holy Mountain would investigate Paixiong's death, they might not necessarily be able to trace it back to Ningfan. After all, the cause of Paixiong's death was his black pearl. On the surface, the cause and effect was still on him. He was the one who brought it upon himself. If he deliberately covered it up, it would be very difficult to trace it back to Ningfan. That was also the reason why Ningfan purposely used the black pearl to attack Paixiong. In the memory of the Triflame Guard, Paixiong was a marginal existence among the Tomb Guardians of the Holy Mountain. If Paixiong died and they could not find out who the other murderer was, this matter would probably be left unsettled. However, Duolan was different. If the saintess of the Holy Mountain dies, there would be more than 3 immortal emperors who would come to investigate this matter. Of course, the immortal emperors would only be able to come out after the Holy Mountain's mausoleum is opened. According to Ningfan's soul search, the Holy Mountain was the sacred land of the Great Bei clan. Every time the 5 emperors of the Middle State advanced to the next realm, they would enter the Holy Mountain's mausoleum to cultivate. The immortal emperors of the Great Bei clan were definitely not just the 5 of them in the Middle State. Even the few black armored guards did not know how many of them there were. The Holy Mountain's mausoleum would open once every 1,000 years. The opening date was not long after the grand competition of the Great Bei clan had ended. Currently, the Holy Mountain's mausoleum was in a closed period. The cultivators inside could not come out, and the people outside could not enter as well. The tribes on the grassland would have a grand competition every 1,000 years. Similarly, the Holy Mountain's mausoleum would also have a grand competition every 1,000 years. The Tomb Guardians who failed in the grand competition must be exiled outside the Holy Mountain for 1,000 years. During this period of time, they would have to supervise the various tribes of the Great Bei clan. If they want to enter the Holy Mountain to cultivate again, they must achieve outstanding results in the grand competition. If Ningfan was not mistaken, be it Duolan or Paixiong who had already died, both of them were mausoleum guardians who failed to be selected in the last grand competition of the Holy Mountain. That was why they wandered around the outside world during the period when the mausoleum was closed. Woo. Duolan struggled weakly. However, due to the restriction of the plucking finger, she could not even speak a single word. Her tears flowed continuously. Ningfan casually threw Duolan into the ancient cultivator's abode. Duolan's buttocks were hurting from the hard ground. She leaned against the stone wall and stared at Ningfan in fear. She knew that Ningfan would plant the 3 soul-locking technique on her and control her mind. Her identity as the saintess could not save her. Neither could her identity as the daughter of the previous Chu Lai emperor. However, what made her even more afraid was that Ningfan did not plant the 3 soul-locking technique on her immediately. Instead, he pressed his cold palm on the top of her skull. He wants to search my memory. Duolan's beautiful face became even paler. Soul-searching and memory erasing was such a cruel technique. As a void-shedding cultivator, she naturally knew that the sea of consciousness of a cultivator who had their soul searched would usually be damaged and turn into an idiot. However, she did not know that Ningfan, who had learned the true dragon reverse spirit technique, could perfectly search someone's soul without causing any harm to them. A slight pain came from her sea of consciousness. It made Duolan close her eyes in despair. As for her memories, they were all seen by Ningfan. Ningfan's expression was rather strange. The memories of this Chu Lai saintess were rather dull. The first half of her life was mostly about her being naked and soaking in a certain pond. That pond was extremely strange. It seemed to contain a great divine ability. Ning Fan could only vaguely see it from Duo Lan's memories. He could not see the true appearance of the pond at all. Occasionally, there would also be a few naked women who would come to the pond and soak together with Duo Lan. Occasionally, Duo Lan would put on her clothes and leave that mysterious pond to meet a middle-aged man who was surrounded by 7-colored light. That was her father, the previous Chu Lai Emperor. In Duo Lan's memories, the previous Chu Lai Emperor did not care much about her. Most of the time he was busy with cultivation. Later on, the previous Chu Lai Emperor died in a rebellion by his disciples. After that, the new Chu Lai Emperor ascended to the throne and took her as his disciple. After her father's death, she never soaked in that mysterious pond again for the rest of her life. In the new Chu Lai Emperor's lineage, she was an anomaly. Her father's former subordinates cared about her, but there were even more people who ostracized her. Even her master, the new Chu Lai Emperor, did not really care about her. As a result, the dignified Chu Lai Saintess, Duo Lan, had already failed to be selected in more than 10 grand competitions of the Holy Mountain. She was exiled from the outside world for many years, and was not allowed to enter the tomb to cultivate. Ning Fan kept going through Duo Lan's memories. He had almost read through all of them. However, there was something very strange. In Duo Lan's memories, all the memories that were related to the Holy Mountain were very blurry. It was not because someone had done this on purpose. Instead, it was because the Holy Mountain did not allow cultivators who did not have a high enough cultivation base to pry into its true appearance. What kind of place is this Holy Mountain of the Great Humble Clan exactly? It actually has such great power that even my soul's search is ineffective. Ning Fan was greatly surprised. This feeling was similar to the time when his cultivation base was low, and he could not see the appearance of the immortal emperors under the 7-colored light. Now that his cultivation base was already extremely high, he still could not see the Holy Mountain clearly. Time passed bit by bit. The ending that Duo Lan expected to turn into an idiot did not come. She was greatly surprised. Even though her sea of consciousness was a little painful, the damage was not serious. It was her first time seeing a soul-searching technique that caused such little damage. Even her master couldn't do this. It was obvious that this technique would be considered an extremely powerful mystical ability in the outside world. After realizing this, Duo Lan's dread and fear towards Ning Fan grew even stronger. The plucking finger that Ning Fan planted in her body was not too severe. At this moment, Duo Lan had already recovered some of her strength. When she saw Ning Fan retract his palm, it seemed like he had finished collecting her soul. She secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Then, she saw Ning Fan looking at her with a strange expression. Looking at the time, "You should have recovered some of your strength, right? Stand up and take off your clothes," Ning Fan suddenly ordered. Duo Lan was so embarrassed that she wanted to die. "Why should I take off my clothes? What else can I do? Not only is this person cold-blooded and bloodthirsty, but he is also a shameless lecher." She had guessed that she would be planted with the 3 soul-locking technique. However, she did not expect that Ning Fan would still want to do something bad to her. This place was desolate and uninhabited. If Ning Fan wants her by force, she would not be able to resist at all. All she could do was to silently obey him. However, she would rather die than to obey him. She could not lose her virginity. At least, not now. The saintesses of the Holy Mountain were extremely special existences. They would soak in the mother-child pool since young. They could give birth to een fetus on their own without the help of intercourse between men and women. She had soaked in the mother-child pool for many years. Her body could already condense een chi and give birth to a een fetus. Unfortunately, she was not willing to just be a saintess who gave birth to a een fetus. Thus, she did not give birth to the een fetus. Instead, she absorbed the een chi that she had accumulated for countless years into her body, and slowly refined it to improve her cultivation base. The een chi in her body was her only hope to break through to the immortal emperor realm in this lifetime. It was her only hope to take back the bloodline of Chu Lai. However, if a man forced himself to have intercourse with her, the een chi in his body would immediately form a een fetus. After 10 months, it would turn into a female infant, With tears in her eyes, Duo Lan struggled to stand up. However, she did not follow Ning Fan's order to take off her clothes. Instead, she leaned against the stone wall and retreated step by step. I can let you plant the 3-in soul-locking technique in me. However, I will never obey you about that matter. If you force me to do so, I would rather die here. If I die, you will certainly get into big trouble once the closed tomb period is over. I know that you have a great purpose for coming to the Holy Mountain. That's why I don't want to cause more trouble. If you don't do that to me, you will certainly regret it. I, Duo Lan, guarantee it with my life. Duo Lan uttered those words resolutely. How could Ning Fan, who was proficient in the mind-reading technique, not see through Duo Lan's thoughts? When did he say that he wanted to pluck Duo Lan? He only knew from Duo Lan's memories that many saintesses of the Holy Mountain would have an extremely unique tattoo on their bodies. Most of them would possess some extremely magical abilities. Thus he wanted to see it for himself. Of course, it was extremely rude to look at a woman's body recklessly. Unfortunately, it was Duo Lan who schemed against him first. According to his temperament, it was already considered as him showing mercy by not plucking Duo Lan as his human cauldron. Thus, there was no need for him to be polite to Duo Lan. I just want to look at your body. I will never pluck you, Ning Fan said with a frown. You just want to look at my body, huh? Duo Lan cursed Ning Fan for being shameless. Not only is he shameless, but he also has a very strange hobby. Could it be that compared to plucking women, this person prefers to admire naked women? Or perhaps, this person is not good in that area. That's why he can only look but not eat. Quickly take off your clothes. You can cover the important parts. I am not interested in your body at all. I am only interested in your saintess tattoo. Ning Fan snorted coldly. So Senior wants to see the saintess tattoo. Duo Lan heaved a sigh of relief. If that was the case, it was still not bad. Her tattoo was on her back. She only needed to show Ning Fan her back. She did not need to expose too much of it. If she was like some saintesses who had the tattoo on their chest or thighs, she would be very embarrassed today. Thus, Duo Lan only took off her outer robe. She still had to take off her undergarment. However, it was already enough. Her fair back was already exposed to Ning Fan. Duo Lan was very skinny. There was not a trace of extra flesh on her back. Her skin was very smooth. However, there was a discordant spot on her smooth skin. At the center of her back, there was an extremely ugly scar. It made her originally perfect back lose much of its luster. Somehow, Ning Fan suddenly thought of Luo Yu when he saw the large patch of scars on her body. That woman also had such a huge scar on her back. Is she doing well now? If Senior wants to see my tattoo, I'm afraid that I will have to disappoint you. My saintess tattoo has been destroyed by someone. Thus, I can't show you the power contained in it. Duo Lan said dejectedly. At the same time, she was a little worried. She was worried that Ning Fan would kill her out of anger if he couldn't see the tattoo. However, this worry was obviously unnecessary. Ning Fan was at most just a little curious about Duo Lan's saintess tattoo. If he couldn't see it, then so be it. Alright, put on your clothes. I'm going to cast the 3-in soul-locking technique on you now. You better cooperate with me so that you won't suffer. Ning Fan said expressionlessly. Duo Lan gritted her teeth and nodded obediently. Compared to being killed and being plucked, just being cast with the 3-in soul-locking technique was already an extremely good outcome. She could only blame herself for foolishly plotting against Ning Fan and dragging him into this muddy water, causing him to have no choice but to wield his blade against the tri-flame armored guards. In this way, after causing the trouble, he naturally had to kill them to keep their mouths shut. If it was her, she would probably make the same choice. I need your help as the saintess to do something in the holy region. If you are obedient, I will remove this technique for you before I leave the holy region. Ning Fan raised his right hand and stretched out his index finger, middle finger and ring finger. He chanted an incantation in his mind. Suddenly, 3 traces of yin flames appeared on the tips of his 3 fingers. Each of the flames had a different color. As soon as the 3 flames appeared, Ning Fan pointed all 3 of his fingers at Duo Lan's glabella. An unbearable pain was felt. Duo Lan coughed out a mouthful of blood. but she stubbornly did not make a sound. What a strong-willed woman, Ning Fan thought to himself. Suddenly, he recalled something and asked Duo Lan. The reason why you and Pai Xiong appeared in the 4th grade ominous domain seemed to be for the 6-star Nirvana origin stone, right? Do you have an innate soul-nourishing spiritual medicine? Duo Lan's expression turned gloomy when she heard Ning Fan mention her senior brother. Then, she remembered that the murderer was Ning Fan. Her expression immediately turned unpleasant to Ning Fan. However, she did not dare to offend Ning Fan. Thus, she reluctantly replied, "Yes. We issued an Earth-grade mission in the Evil Goat tribe. At first, we didn't think that anyone would accept it. However, we didn't expect that the mission would be taken by you in the end. When you didn't return for a long time, senior brother, and I thought that you had given up on the mission. Thus, we entered the ominous domain to look for the 6-star Nirvana origin stone on our own. However, we didn't expect that someone had already entered that extremely secretive mineral vein and destroyed the entire space there. As soon as the space was destroyed, senior brother and I couldn't find the entrance to the space. Naturally, we couldn't enter the place. Fortunately, we could vaguely sense that there were people inside. Thus, we could only wait outside. However, we didn't expect that we would be discovered by the Tri-Flame guards in just a few days. They trapped me and senior brother there for many days." When she said that, Duo Lan's beautiful eyes were filled with anger. Usually, the Tri-Flame guards would never appear in any ominous domain that was below the 7th grade. It was definitely not a coincidence that the Tri-Flame guards appeared there. Someone must have leaked the whereabouts of her and Pai Xiong. Who was the one who leaked the news? Was it the cultivators of Debei tribe, the 5 emperors of the Middle State, or the other tomb guardians of the Sacred Mountain? I don't know. In any case, it must be one of her many enemies. Ning Fan was not concerned about Duo Lan's experience. He was only interested in the innate soul-nourishing spiritual medicine that was mentioned in the mission reward. The innate soul-nourishing spiritual medicine isn't in your senior brother's storage pouch. Is it with you? Ning Fan asked. Senior, how would I dare to bring something as precious as an innate soul-nourishing spiritual medicine with me? They are all placed in my immortal cave on the Sacred Mountain. I can only get them after the competition of the tribes, and when the Sacred Mountain reopens. Duo Lan carefully observed Ning Fan's expression. Naturally, she could tell that Ning Fan was interested in the innate soul-nourishing spiritual medicine. Thus, she explained sensibly, "It's not with you, huh?" Indeed, if this lady was carrying the innate soul-nourishing spiritual medicine with her, she would definitely not be able to hide it from the senses of the treasure-searching compass. Forget it. When the Sacred Mountain reopens, bring me to get the spiritual medicine, Ning Fan ordered. Yes, after being hit by Ning Fan's 3-in soul-locking technique, Duo Lan had a kind of obedience towards Ning Fan from the bottom of her heart. This feeling was very strange. If she really had to point it out, it was somewhat similar to Zhang Yu's situation. Even though she was extremely displeased with Ning Fan, she just could not do anything to harm him. Ning Fan was also secretly observing Duo Lan's inner thoughts. He could see through a lady's mind. If this lady had a hint of disrespect towards him, it meant that the 3-in soul-locking technique was not effective enough. Then he would have to reconsider killing her to silence her. Fine. You can follow me back to the grassland of the Southern Territory. I suppose you don't want to tell anyone about the 3-in soul-locking technique, Ning Fan said with deep meaning in his words. Of course. Duo Lan gritted her teeth in humiliation. As the tomb guardian of the Sacred Mountain, she would never allow herself to become anyone's soul-locking slave. She had already become Ning Fan's soul-locking slave. It would be fine if this matter was not exposed. However, if it was exposed, Ning Fan would not be able to bear the consequences, and she would definitely not be able to escape from a heavy punishment. After all, this matter had tarnished the reputation of the Sacred Mountain. It was something that the emperors of the Sacred Mountain absolutely could not tolerate. Chapter 1005. After casting the 3-in soul-locking technique, Ning Fan tore open the space and left with Duo Lan. Along the way, Duo Lan had a worried look on her face. Even though she managed to stay alive from Ningfan's hands, the death of her senior brother, and the fact that she became a soul slave still gave her quite a big blow. When it came to Ningfan, she was restricted by the soul-locking technique, and had no choice but to submit to him. Even her heart had a strange feeling of resignation. However, because she was afraid of Ningfan, she didn't dare to talk to him too much along the way. Of course, there were some things that she had to clarify. For example, Duolan was very concerned about Ningfan's next destination. If she did not become a soul slave, she would have already obtained the 6-star Nirvana Origin Stone, and was preparing for the Holy Mountain Grand Competition. However, she had lost her most basic freedom today. Senior, are you going back to the evil goat tribe to submit your mission? Duolan hesitated for a long time and asked. That's right. We are going back to the evil goat tribe to submit our mission first. After that, we will return to the Tiamu tribe to prepare for the minor competition of the southern border. During this period of time, you will stay by my side. Ningfan answered. Before confirming the effectiveness of the 3-in soul-locking technique, he did not plan to let Duolan leave his side to avoid any unforeseen circumstances. Minor competition of the southern border? Senior is an external cultivator. There are not many benefits for you to participate in the minor competition of the southern border. Could it be that Senior has some other plans for the competition or? Duolan's beautiful eyes moved as she had a guess. Ningfan's eyes slightly squinted in response. His eyes were calm, but there was an invisible pressure in them. Whether I have any plans for the tribal competition or not is not something you can ask. I hope you will keep this in mind. Duolan's heart trembled. She scolded herself for talking too much. She gritted her teeth and pretended to be obedient. Senior's plans are naturally not something that I can interfere with. I will certainly pay attention to this point, and will not dare to say anything else. That's for the best. Duolan bit her lips and continued. I am the tomb guardian of the Holy Mountain. Due to my poor results in the previous competitions, I was not qualified to enter the Holy Mountain to cultivate. I have made sufficient preparations for this competition, and I have a good chance of entering the Holy Mountain to cultivate. I wonder if Senior can allow me to leave temporarily on the day of the Holy Mountain Grand Competition to participate in the competition. As far as I know, the tribal grand competition of your despicable clan is divided into 3 rounds in total, right? Ningfan answered with a question. In reply to Elder's question, the so-called Great Tribal Competition is actually just the name that the outer cultivators and lower tribes call the battle for the mausoleum. But in the mouths of the cultivators of the Sacred Mountain, the tribal grand competition is called the Mausoleum Seizing Battle. The Seizing the Mausoleum War was indeed divided into 3 rounds. The first round was the competition between the various regions of the prairies, the second round was the Central State Grand Competition, and the third round was the Grand Competition of the Sacred Mountain. Senior is representing the Towerwood tribe to participate in the Southern Border Minor Competition, which is part of the first round of the Mausoleum Seizing War, Duolan explained. The Battle of Seizing the Tomb. Ningfan wore a thoughtful expression. From the memories of those Triflame guards, he had found quite a lot of information related to the Battle of Seizing the Tomb. I presume that Senior also knows that the ancestor of my great humble sect was an ancient saint. After the ancestor died, his will turned into a sacred mountain with a sacred mausoleum. 12 meridians opened, encompassing the fortune of heaven and earth. At this point, Duolan suddenly clutched his head and revealed a painful expression, unable to continue speaking. If the words related to the sacred mountain violate the taboo, you don't have to say anything more. Ningfan's eyes turned slightly solemn as he instructed. If he was not mistaken, this Duolan was limited by his cultivation base, and could not talk too much about the sacred mountain. Understood. Duolan was a little surprised by Ningfan's understanding. He took a deep breath and continued. There are 12 mausoleum veins in the sacred mountain. If cultivators enter the mausoleum veins to cultivate, their cultivation speed will naturally be extremely fast. There are even many cultivators who could comprehend a trace of the ancestors' will from the mausoleum veins, which allowed their abilities to improve tremendously. Oh? The mausoleum veins in the sacred mountain. can actually allow cultivators to comprehend the saint's will. Ning Fan's eyes flickered. For the first time, he was interested in the sacred mountain. The saint's will and abilities would improve tremendously. If it wasn't because he had other important matters to attend to, he really wanted to have a look at the sacred mountain's mausoleum. The battle of seizing the mausoleum takes place once every 1,000 years. The 12 mausoleum veins change owners once every 1,000 years. As for the specific ownership, it would still have to be determined by the results of the grand competition of the sacred mountain. Currently, my Chulai lineage has occupied the 9th of the 12 mausoleum veins. Because of my overall ranking in the previous mausoleum seizing battle, I obtained 10 quotas to enter the mausoleum to cultivate. Unfortunately, my personal results were too poor. Therefore, I wasn't one of the 10 quotas for Chulai lineage. Now it's another mausoleum seizing battle. I'm the guardian of Chulai's mausoleum, and I'm also the saintess of Chulai. If it's possible, when the grand competition of the sacred mountain begins, can Senior allow me to leave temporarily and participate in the competition? Duolan gritted her teeth and pleaded. Ning Fan looked at Duolan deeply. It was hard to tell whether he was happy or angry. The grand competition of the sacred mountain is the 3rd round of the mausoleum seizing battle. The minor competition of the southern border is the 1st round. There's still some time before the 3rd round. You don't have to be anxious. What he meant was that he did not agree to it, but he did not completely reject it either. Duolan was a little disappointed. However, she felt that such an outcome was reasonable. If she was the external cultivator with the surname Ning, she would also make the same decision. Moreover, the external cultivator with the surname Ning did not reject the request straight away. That meant there was still a glimmer of hope. In that case, as long as I perform well and satisfy the external cultivator with the surname Ning, I would most likely have the chance to get the approval to participate in the grand competition of the sacred mountain. The two of them chatted while flying. After flying past a few continents, Ning Fan suddenly came to a halt. He was slightly surprised. Not long after that, his expression turned strange. Senior, why did you stop? This is, Duolan spread out her spirit sense. Then she gasped. What happened to this continent? There's actually such a large scale of miasma leaking out. This is an extremely rare occurrence. The miasma in the ferocious domain continent was extremely poisonous. If it leaks out, even some true immortal realm old monsters would not dare to come into contact with it if they were unprepared. At this moment, the sky above the ferocious domain continent was filled with white mist. That mist looked extremely ordinary. However, only those who were trapped within it would know how terrifying and difficult it was to deal with. In the deepest part of the miasma, 7 to 8 cultivators had already fallen to the ground. All of them were from the Evil Goat clan. Only 5 to 6 of them were still standing, including the young clan leader of the Evil Goat clan, Xinyu Chun. The miasma surrounding them was too thick. Only with the combined efforts of the few of them did the Evil Goat tribe people manage to create a few square feet of empty space. However, they could only barely maintain it. If they wanted to rush out from the depths of the miasma, it would be impossible for them to do so with their current cultivation. They could only helplessly stay in this place. Young clan leader, Lai Lugu has fainted from the earth chi poison. His life is in danger. Lai Lugu has saved my life. Quickly use my Chao Huandan to save him. There's no need to save pills for this old man. Feed him with all your might. You must feed him until he wakes up. Otherwise, this old man will skin you. Young clan leader, Alan also fainted. Then what are you waiting for? Use my Chao Huandan to save someone. Alan, I promised his mother that I would protect him for the rest of his life. Quick. A human life was at stake. They are all my subordinates. No one is allowed to die. Young clan leader, Noi Zhenyi. Use my Chao Huandan to save someone. Hasyi. Use my Chao Huandan to save someone. Young clan leader, there's something that I need to report. What is it? You didn't even bring your Chao Huandan with you today. 10 breaths passed. 20 breaths passed. Xinyu Chun suddenly slapped his forehead with a dumbfounded expression. Then he suddenly realized something. Ayahaha, It seems like I really forgot to bring it. Ha 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 ha. Ha ha my ass. Without pills to save our lives, aren't we all going to die here? At this moment, Xin Yu-chun was a little anxious. His cultivation was higher, and he could still hold on for a few more days. However, his subordinates could not hold on any longer. Young clan leader, allow me to say something that I shouldn't have said. You shouldn't have entered this ominous domain. That immortal venerable Ning is so powerful that he might not even need you to give him the positioning compass. Now we've lost our lives. One of the evil goat tribe cultivators complained. Shut up. You're nagging like a woman. Xin Yu-chun glared at his subordinate coldly, scaring him so much that he no longer dared to speak. Suddenly, Xin Yu-chun's face lit up. He seemed to have sensed the chi of two cultivators outside the miasma. Moreover, their chi was extremely strong. It should be enough to save their group of people. After a moment of hesitation, he circulated all of his magic power and spoke loudly outside the miasma. Xin Yu-chun of the evil goat tribe has fallen into a predicament here. I hope that the two seniors can help me. If I can survive, I will certainly reward you handsomely. Ning Fan's expression turned strange. With the strength of his spirit sense, he could easily detect everything that was happening in this place through the layers of miasma. He was not a person who liked to meddle in other people's business. However, this Xin Yu-chun had served him wholeheartedly before. In that case, even though he was unwilling to accept him as a disciple, he would not leave him in the lurch. What made him not know whether to laugh or cry was that the reason why Xin Yu-chun was trapped in this place was actually related to him. Xin Yu-chun had come to give him the positioning compass. This young man probably came to deliver the compass as soon as he received the report from his subordinates. Unfortunately, Xin Yu-chun did not know that Ning Fan did not need the positioning compass at all. Senior wants to save this person? Duo Lan advises Senior not to do so. This person cannot be saved. Duo Lan suddenly tried to dissuade Ning Fan. Oh, why can't this person be saved? Ning Fan asked indifferently. The leakage of miasma in the ferocious domain continent is extremely rare. Even if it does appear occasionally, it is all man-made. Duo Lan suspects that the reason why these cultivators of the evil goat tribe are trapped in this place is man-made. Duo Lan explained. You're saying that someone schemed against Xin Yu-chun and caused him to be trapped in this place? That's right. I was just suspecting it at first. However, when I sensed the existence of this item from this place, I was immediately convinced of my guess. In order to gain Ning Fan's favor, Duo Lan was naturally eager to make a contribution. Both of her hands formed a series of hand seals. Then she let out a soft cry and a crimson wolf shadow flew out from the top of her head. A medicine soul in the form of a beast. Ning Fan's expression turned solemn. This cultivator of the despicable domain really has a unique way of cultivating his medicine soul. Duo Lan's medicine soul was actually at the 9th revolution lead grade. If she is in the Eastern Heaven, she would probably be a pill refinement master who would shock the world. However, it was not rare to see someone like her in the despicable domain. Duo Lan had been besieged by the Triflame guards for many days. Her injuries were extremely severe. Now that she used her ability, she immediately felt weak. However, she still forced herself to continue using her ability. Suddenly, the crimson wolf shadow let out a shrill howl. All of a sudden, the entire heaven and earth were dyed red by that howl. Then somewhere in the sky, the space suddenly cracked and an item fell out. It was a golden talisman with the word swastika. A talisman of the Buddhist sect. Ning Fan's eyes turned slightly solemn. The existence of this talisman of the Buddhist sect was really well hidden. Even with his senses, he did not notice that there was a talisman hidden in this place without deliberately searching for it. As soon as the talisman appeared, large patches of golden light immediately swept away the crimson color in the sky. Duo Lan let out a faint sigh. As expected, it was that person who schemed against Xin Yu-chun. When the golden light illuminated the heaven and earth, and the layers of miasma fell into the eyes of Xin Yu-chun and the others, they were stunned at first. Then, all of them were enraged. This is the alchemist earth control talisman. It can control a piece of land and overturn the heavens and earth. So that's how it is. So that's how it is. No wonder the miasma suddenly leaked out of this place. I've actually been schemed against by someone. Xin Yu-chun, who had always been lacking in intelligence, suddenly understood this point as if his intelligence had been boosted by the gods. This is a special talisman of the alchemist clan. Since it appeared in this place, it means that the person who schemed against me is the alchemist clan. Damn it! Why can't I remember offending the cultivators of the alchemist clan before? Xin Yu-chun sighed in despair. If he could recognize that it was a talisman of the alchemist clan, the two seniors outside would certainly recognize it as well. Would they dare to save us? If we save them, we will certainly offend the alchemist clan, right? These two seniors are still not helping us. It's most likely that they don't intend to save us. Each of the cultivators of the evil goat tribe was in despair. This is a special talisman of the alchemist clan. Since this talisman is here, it means that there is a cultivator of the alchemist clan who schemed against the cultivators of the evil goat tribe. The alchemist clan is the strongest clan in the sacred mountain. If Senior saves Xin Yu-chun, I'm afraid that you will offend some people of the alchemist clan. Duolon hinted. From her point of view, a cowardly person like Ning Fan would never be willing to offend the alchemist clan. Ning Fan frowned slightly. Indeed, he did not want to become enemies with them. However, it also depended on the situation. Xin Yu-chun came here for him, and he was trapped because of him. If he still did not save him, he would not be Ning Fan. As for the alchemist clan, they might not necessarily know that he was the one who saved them. With that thought in mind, Ning Fan pointed his finger at heaven and earth. A ray of fiery light shot out, burning the talisman of the Buddhist clan into ashes. Then he flicked his sleeve. The miasma that pervaded heaven and earth was forcefully separated by an invisible force, revealing a vacuum passage. Suddenly, there was a way out of the poisonous mist. No matter how stupid Xin Yu-chun and the others were, they knew that the mysterious senior had come to their rescue. All of them were overjoyed and hurriedly escaped with their fainted companions. As soon as they escaped, Xin Yu-chun excitedly wanted to thank the senior for saving his life. Unfortunately, he could not even see the shadow of the person who saved them. After saving Xin Yu-chun and the others, Ning Fan immediately left. He did not care about such a trivial matter. Duolon was greatly surprised. She did not expect Ning Fan to risk offending the alchemist clan to save them. Her impression of Ning Fan also changed for the first time. It turns out that this great humble tribe is not a pure land. Most of the cultivators in this tribe are not intelligent. Therefore, compared to ordinary people, they are less calculative and more simple. However, this does not mean that there are no cultivators who are good at scheming. First it was Duolon. Then it was Xin Yu-chun. As soon as they entered the ominous region, they were immediately plotted against. From the looks of it, the most dangerous thing in the ominous region is not the corpse devils and ferocious beasts that are hiding in the mountains, but the human heart. Ning Fan sighed softly. He no longer felt relaxed like he did when he first entered the Towerwood tribe. During his trip to the ominous region, he had gained a comprehensive understanding of the great humble tribe through the soul search. However, he did not obtain any information about the whereabouts of the 9 raccoon sacrificial vessel. He still needed to search for it slowly. Naturally, Ning Fan returned to the evil goat tribe before Xin Yu-chun and the others. The evil goat tribe was still bustling with people. It was lively and peaceful. None of the cultivators in the tribe were worried about their young clan leader's delayed return. The cultivators of the great humble tribe were all brave people. Unless they saw Xin Yu-chun's corpse with their own eyes, none of them would have groundless worries. This gave Ning Fan a new understanding of the weirdness of the great humble tribe. I haven't seen the young clan leader for many days. I really miss him. A young man who was herding sheep said to another young man. I heard that the young clan leader went to the ominous region. It has been so many days, but he still hasn't returned. Could he have encountered some danger? Of course he won't be in danger. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Let's not talk about the young clan leader anymore. Look. I picked up a strange stone. That's dried sheep dung. I don't believe it. If you don't believe me, I'll show you. Ugh. Look. It's really sheep dung, isn't it? It's so disgusting. Why would I lie to you? I don't believe it. You must be lying to me. I want to taste it myself to make sure. Looking at the peaceful people of the evil goat tribe, Ning Fan was speechless. Don't these shameless young men know that your young clan leader almost died in the ominous region? Ning Fan went all the way to the place where he could claim his mission. During this trip, he had completed a total of 51 human rank missions and 7 earth rank missions. As such, he had certainly completed the 3 merit tasks. Now that he had completed the 3 merit tasks and 6 punishments, he only needed to obey the 12 prohibitions of the Great Humble Tribe, and there would not be any trouble. The 51 human rank missions gave him a total of nearly 1 million medicine soul stones. The earth rank mission gave him 2 million medicine soul stones and other rewards. There were 12 9 revolutions silver pills. All of them were pills that could improve the cultivation base of the Dujin realm. Besides, they were different from the 4 heavens pills. The pills of the Great Humble Tribe could improve one's cultivation base tremendously. According to Ning Fan's estimation, any one of these pills would be as effective as a fruit of Dujin Dao. This was a little scary. It made Ning Fan look forward to those pills that could improve his cultivation base. There were 3 acquired magic treasures. Most of them were first nirvana or second nirvana magic treasures. There were 7 tufts of 5 million years old spiritual herbs, a life immortal realm corpse devil slave, and a soul skill of the battle soul. The spiritual herbs were a type that Ning Fan had never seen before. What widened his horizons even more was the secret technique that the Great Humble Tribe used to control the corpse devils. The Great Humble Tribe seemed to be extremely good at controlling the corpse devils. Ning Fan noticed that the corpse devil slave that he obtained was wearing a golden hoop on its head. It was exactly this golden hoop that restrained the corpse devils and made them obey Ning Fan's orders. This golden hoop is called the devil subduing hoop. Once you put it on, you can easily subdue devil creatures. Not only is it effective on corpse devils, but it also has the effect of controlling pill devils, ancient devils and all devil cultivators in the world. It's the best magic treasure of the Buddhist sect for subduing devils. Tuolong, the guardian of the mission, explained to Ning Fan when he was receiving the rewards. Ning Fan naturally did not need the corpse devil slave that was at the life immortal realm. Thus he sold it to the evil goat tribe in exchange for a large amount of medicine soul stones. The soul skill of the battle soul was a 7th revolution soul skill that could be cultivated by 7th revolution pill refinement masters. The grade of this soul skill was roughly equivalent to a void fragmentation realm magic technique. Its grade was not considered high. However, the mysteriousness of the soul skills of the Great Humble Tribe still widened Ning Fan's horizons. For example, the 7th revolution soul skill that Ning Fan obtained was called Soul Increasing Technique. It was a skill that continuously consumes one's soul power. Once it is activated, it can improve the spirituality of a pill refinement master's medicine soul. When concocting pills, it can slightly improve the quality of the pills. The grade of this soul skill was not considered high, but it was practical. Besides, this kind of medicine soul skill was extremely rare in the 4 heavens. In the Earth grade mission, only the reward of the innate soul-nourishing spiritual herbs can't be fulfilled directly. You will need to personally go to Lord Paixiong and Lord Duolan to exchange for the reward with 10 pieces of 6-star Nirvana origin stones. However, since you are traveling with Lord Duolan, I'm sure you will exchange for the reward on your own. There's no need for me to worry about that. Speaking of which, why didn't I see Lord Paixiong? Tuolong asked casually. Paixiong is dead. He was killed by the evil Triflame guards. Duolan lied. His eyes became a little red. Damn Triflame guards. Lord Duolan, don't be sad. Once the sacred mountain reopens, your master will definitely avenge Lord Paixiong. Tuolong consoled. I hope so. Duolan intentionally or unintentionally glanced at Ning Fan's, but she saw that Ning Fan's expression did not change as he flipped through the soul-amplifying law. He did not have the slightest bit of guilt for Paixiong's death. As a result, her impression of Ning Fan's had just changed, but at this moment, she once again felt that Ning Fan's was cold-blooded. Of course, Ning Fan would not feel guilty for a dead man. Since he had already killed him, he could only blame Paixiong for seeking his own death. He had already forgotten about this matter. After reading it a few times, He had already memorized the soul-increasing technique. He kept the leather scroll and left the evil goat tribe with Duo Lan. Returning to the Tower Wood tribe, Duo Lan was gloomy along the way. Ning Fan naturally would not care about her feelings and returned to the Pagoda Wood tribe. Seeing Ning Fan's return, the clan leader of the Tamu tribe, Tagori, was nearly moved to tears. The rules of the Southern Border Minor competition were that each tribe would send out 20 participants to compete, and they would be ranked according to the overall results. The Southern Border Minor competition this time would be held by the Zhaofeng tribe, which was the #1 tribe in the previous competition. There were still 3 days before the competition, but Tagori was still anxious about the list of participants. It turned out that Zhang Yu, Old Wu Ba and Ouyang Nuan were not in the Tamu tribe. It's an emergency. I'll borrow your sister Nuan for a while. She will be returned 3 months later during the Middle Province Minor competition. The Southern Border Minor competition is equally important. You must get the first place. I must ensure that Sister Nuan remains unharmed during this trip. Trust me. This was the voice transmission jade slip that Zhang Yu left behind. Husband, I'm going with Sister Zhang Yu to save an old friend of hers. If we succeed, it might be beneficial for us to find the sacrificial vessel. This was Ouyang Nuan's message. Master, Zhang Yu has news about the sacrificial vessel. Little 8 will follow her and help you find it. Little 8 isn't doing this for Master's reward. Instead, it's because of my loyalty and passion. A lot of nonsense was left behind by Old Wu Ba. With that, Ning Fan finally figured out the whereabouts of Zhang Yu and the others. The message was left behind when he had just entered the Fierce region. In other words, the 3 of them had already left for nearly a month. At this moment, they had already returned to the Middle Province. Without him following them, he would naturally be worried about Ouyang Nuan's safety. However, when he recalled that Zhang Yu was following them and that woman had solemnly guaranteed that they would be safe, Ning Fan believed that Zhang Yu would definitely keep Ouyang Nuan safe and sound. After all, if this woman puts her life on the line, she would be able to display the full strength of an immortal Emperor Realm cultivator. What made him even more curious was that Zhang Yu actually obtained news about the 9 civet sacrificial vessel. It seemed like whether he could obtain this news or not was related to whether Zhang Yu could save her old friend. What a bold woman. How dare she act on her own when I'm not around? Ning Fan shook his head helplessly. No matter what, Zhang Yu was probably doing it out of kindness. She probably wanted to help him obtain the news about the sacrificial vessel. After spending some time with this woman, he had developed a certain level of trust towards her. He was also very assured when it came to handling matters. After all, this woman was extremely stubborn in certain aspects. She would never betray Ning Fan just for Mu Weiliang. Brother Ning, they have all left but you can't. If you leave, our Tower Wood tribe will be at the bottom again. Tagori nearly knelt down in front of Ning Fan. Don't worry. I won't leave. Thinking of Zhang Yu's reminder, Ning Fan decided to fight for the first place in this minor competition no matter what. If this matter was not important, Zhang Yu would not have specially reminded him. As soon as he heard that Ning Fan would not leave, Tagori's spirit was lifted once again. Even though Ning Fan was the only one among the external cultivators participating in the competition, Tagori believed that with Ning Fan's participation, their Tamu tribe would not be at the bottom no matter what. After all, other than the Tamu tribe, there were still a few other tribes that did not have space to participate in the competition. Of course, Tagori had completely dispelled the idea of fighting for first place. Many of the tribes had more than one Shikong. After Ning Fan's cultivation base was sealed, he could only display the power of his Shikong. In the entire Tower Wood tribe, he was the only one who could fight against the Shikong of the other tribes. The Southern Border Minor competition was a competition of 20 people. Could Ning Fan compete with a group of people for the first place? They could only blame the fact that the cultivators of the Pagoda Wood tribe were too weak. Speaking of which, why did younger brother Ning bring back a mausoleum guardian of the sacred mountain this time? Tulai Duolan. I heard that this woman has a lot of pursuers. Could it be that she has taken a fancy to younger brother Ning? Otherwise, how could the prideful mausoleum guardian possibly lower himself in front of younger brother Ning? Amazing. Amazing. As an external cultivator, He actually managed to conquer the fiercest she-wolf in our grassland. Hee. Tajiri seemed to have thought of something, and his smile suddenly became a little wretched. 3 days later, the day of the southern border minor competition, on the grassland of the wind-summoning tribe, rays of light rushed over from afar just to participate in today's grand event. The mausoleum seizing battle, and the southern border minor competition, that happened once every 1,000 years. To most of the tribes in the southern border, what they were concerned about was not to be at the bottom after the minor competition. After all, once they were at the bottom, they would be punished to guard the holy monument, and would not be allowed to leave their post for 1,000 years. However, to those powerful tribes in the southern border, they were aiming for the first place in the minor competition this time. I wonder which tribe will emerge victorious in this southern border minor competition, and seize the first place. I think the Calling Wind Division will still be number 1 in this minor competition. I heard that there are another 2 members of the Calling Wind Division that broke through to the Shedding Emptiness realm within the past 1,000 years. I think the Evil Goat tribe has a lot of hope. That young master of the Evil Goat tribe is very good at the soul fusion technique. In the last minor competition, the Evil Goat tribe relied on Xinyu Chun to get 3rd place. After 1,000 years, I heard that Xinyu Chun's soul fusion technique has improved again. Haven't you heard? The Sea Spirit Division's Dark Sea Mages were already half a step into the thought-fragmenting realm. The overall strength of the Sea Soul Division is only considered average, but with this person, I, on the other hand, feel that the Pagoda Wood tribe also has a chance of winning. The cultivator who said that the Pagoda Wood tribe would win the championship was ridiculed by several people before he could finish his words. Tasha Division? He only had the assistance of external cultivators. Those external cultivators had been inflicted with the 6 punishments, so they were utterly unable to bring forth much of their cultivations. At most, they were able to prevent Tamu from being at the bottom, but it was impossible for them to seize the first. I think that the Pagoda Wood clan will barely be able to break through 1,000 points this time, but that's all. After all, the Tamu tribe only got 45 points in the previous tournament. 45 points. It was a humiliating score. In the previous minor competition, even the True Khan tribe, which was ranked 2nd last, had scored more than 200 points. There were more than 10 tribes that had scored more than 1,000 points. The Wind Summoning tribe, which was ranked 1st, had scored more than 7,200 points, which was more than 100 times more than the Pagoda Wood tribe. 1,000 points was already considered to be an extremely high evaluation of the Pagoda Wood tribe. After all, in the long history of the Pagoda Wood tribe, there were only a few people who had scored more than this. Most of the cultivators of the southern border, who had arrived early, would exchange pleasantries with each other. Only a few weak and small tribes like the Pagoda Wood tribe did not ask anything after they arrived. As soon as Tagori and the others arrived, they hid in a corner of the grassland all by themselves. No one paid attention to them, and they also did not go to talk to anyone. As a tribe that was ranked last in the previous tournaments, they would usually be asking for humiliation if they went to talk to someone. They would be ridiculed by others. Each of the men of the Pagoda Wood tribe had their faces flushed red. They mustered up their chi and wanted to fight for the tribe's honor in this minor competition. Even if they had to die for it, they would not hesitate. Such an atmosphere was also flowing among the other weak and small tribes. Ning Fan scanned through each of the tribes with his spirit sense. He helplessly realized that it was not an injustice at all that the Pagoda Wood tribe was ranked last in the previous tournaments. For a tribe like the Wind Summoning tribe, almost none of the participants had a cultivation base lower than Duzhen, let alone Shikong. As for the Evil Goat tribe, almost none of them had a cultivation base lower than Ghost Profound Realm. As for the Pagoda Wood tribe, there were only 4 people who had a cultivation base higher than Duzhen. This was including Ning Fan, and the leader of the Pagoda Wood tribe. According to the rules of the Mausoleum Seizing Battle, the leaders of each tribe were not allowed to participate in the tournament. In that case, Duzhen of the Pagoda Wood tribe had to be eliminated. They could not even gather 20 life Immortal Realm cultivators, and there were even first step cultivators among the participants this time. They were too weak. With such overall strength, How could they not be ranked last in the grand competition? You are the external cultivator that the Pagoda Wood tribe invited? Are you called Ning Fan? Suddenly, a voice interrupted Ning Fan's thoughts. It was a burly man with a bare upper body. His head was bald, and there was a strange bird totem that looked like a bird or a beast tattooed on his head. That totem was the tribal totem of the Wind Summoning tribe. It was the Wind Falcon, the religion of the Wind Summoning tribe. As for this bald burly man, he was the strongest cultivator of the Wind Summoning tribe, Nanjilong. Pagoda Wood tribe, you're nothing but an ant. In this grand competition, my Wind Summoning tribe will be 10,000 points ahead of the Tamu tribe. Nanjilong laughed loudly and returned to his group. The people from the other tribes gradually regained their senses. The White Ghost sorcerer of the White Ghost tribe, Shikong, also walked to Ning Fan's group and shouted, "In this grand competition, my White Ghost tribe will be 2,000 points ahead of the Tamu tribe." The She Corpse tribe, on the other hand, shouted, "If we don't get 1,500 points ahead of the Tamu tribe, we will crawl back." There was also the Yannan tribe and the Black Mountain tribe. At this moment, each and every one of the tribes, be it strong or weak, came to Ning Fan's group and shouted in humiliation. On the contrary, the Evil Goat tribe, who had always hated the Tamu tribe, strangely shut their mouths this time. No one dared to provoke the cultivators of the Tamu tribe. Tagore silently gritted his teeth. He knew that these tribes wanted to please Great Emperor Lu Tua of the Middle State. Since Great Emperor Lu Tua was against the Tamu tribe, there were countless tribes who wanted to step on the Tamu tribe. Each of the men of the Tamu tribe blushed. However, they did not argue with the others. It was a fact that the Tamu tribe was ranked last every year. Even if they wanted to argue, they had nothing to say. However, none of them were willing to accept it. They were unwilling to be used as a stepping stone to please Emperor Lu Tua. They must prove themselves. They must use this small competition to wash away the humiliation of being the weakest tribe of the Tamu tribe. Ning Fan's eyes became a little cold. It was not because he had deep feelings for the Tamu tribe, but because the experience of the Tamu tribe resonated with him. In the grassland of the southern border, there were countless cultivators who wanted to step on the Tamu tribe to please Emperor Lu Tua. In the eastern heaven, there were also countless people who wanted to step on Ning Fan to please the dark race. How similar. How embarrassing. Brother Ning, I've let you see a joke. My Tamu tribe is indeed unbearable. Even an inferior tribe dares to mock us wantonly. Tagore said with a bitter smile. His bitter smile was filled with unwillingness and anger. It doesn't matter. I will use the truth to shut these people up. Ning Fan's eyes had already regained its calmness. At this moment, a loud and clear sound of a horn that sounded like the hoarse voice of an old dragon finally resounded. Chapter 1006. No one knew where the sound of the horn came from. It seemed to be supported by a great divine ability, causing everyone who heard the sound to feel their blood boiling. Then a ray of silver light broke through the sky. That silver light looked like a ball of flame from afar. It was so dazzling that no one could look at it directly. When it got closer, they could see that it was an old man standing in the middle of the silver flame. The old man wore a golden circlet on his head. His face was tense and stiff. His skin was greenish-black and no one could see any expression on his face. His body was full of death chi. He was a corpse devil that had died countless years ago. This corpse devil's body was emitting a strong early thought fragmentation realm chi. In his hand, he was holding a scroll that was sealed by silver flames. As soon as he stood in the sky, he opened the scroll. Instantly, a terrifying aura force turned into a gale and swept towards everyone. Those cultivators from the tribes who had weak cultivation bases were usually blown away by the gale. Only the true immortal realm mold monsters could remain unmoved in this gale. When the gale finally blew past, the cultivators of the tribes could no longer stand still. They knelt on the ground and bowed to the corpse devil. "Welcome, sacred envoy." Their voices pierced through the sky. Tamu and the others naturally bowed to him. Those cultivators who were flying in the sky and watching the grand event from afar also landed on the ground and bowed to him respectfully. Among them was even Duolan, who had a noble status. The hierarchy in the despicable tribe was strict. Because the cultivators of the tribes were the descendants of medicine slaves, their status was the lowest. The tomb guardians of the sacred mountain had a slightly higher status, but they still had to kneel before the sacred envoy. Even if the so-called sacred envoy was just a group of corpse devils with low spiritual intelligence. Why don't you kneel? The corpse devil old man's eyes swept across the grassland. Suddenly, there was a person who dared not to kneel before him. Then he questioned with a hoarse voice. I'm not a person from the despicable tribe. Naturally, I don't need to kneel to anyone. Ning Fan said indifferently. That makes sense. The corpse devil old man's tone was still stiff. There was no hint of joy or anger. Listening to his words, he seemed to agree with Ning Fan's explanation. Suddenly, his body flashed and disappeared from the sky without leaving a trace. Ning Fan's eyes turned solemn. His body also flashed and disappeared without a trace. At the next moment, an explosion suddenly resounded in the vast sky where there was no one. It sounded like a single explosion, but it also sounded like countless explosions that overlapped. Following that, spatial cracks appeared in the sky. Then two figures flew out from the spatial cracks. They were none other than Ning Fan and the elderly corpse devil. Ning Fan landed on the ground calmly. That corpse devil's dull eyes were filled with shock. What happened? No one, including the cultivators in the Shikong clan, could clearly see what the old man and Ning Fan had done. Even Doran did not know what had happened in that instant. That does make sense. That corpse devil old man kept his astonished expression and maintained his indifferent expression. Only he knew that in that extremely short moment, he had already exchanged tens of punches with Ning Fan. Even with the strength of his corpse devil body, he was actually at a complete disadvantage in the exchange of blows. According to the rules of the Holy Mountain, if one had the strength to rival the Holy Emissary, they could ignore the hierarchy and not kneel before the Holy Emissary. Since Ning Fan had such strength, there was naturally no need for him to kneel before him. However, if he meets a stronger Holy Envoy, he would still need to kneel before him. Could it be that this external cultivator surnamed Ning is able to hold his own against an early thought-shattering cultivator, even though his cultivation is suppressed? When the cultivators in the area saw that the Holy Emissary did not hold Ning Fan accountable for not kneeling, all of them had their guesses and were secretly shocked. Then, they remembered that Ning Fan was the only ruthless person in the Towerwood tribe. No matter how strong he was, there was still a limit to how much he could change the situation of this small competition. Thus, they heaved a sigh of relief. After all, he was just one person. That corpse devil old man's expression was still indifferent. He ordered the cultivators who were kneeling to stand up, and began to read the scroll in his hand. The battle of seizing the mausoleum will be held once every 1,000 years. I, the Holy Emissary number 41, will be in charge of the competition in the southern border. It will be divided into 2 rounds, the written test and the martial test. The group with the highest total score will be able to enter the middle state and participate in the second round of the mausoleum. Now, I will announce the topic of the written test. I advise everyone not to blink and watch what is going to happen next. Don't miss out a single detail. When the corpse devil old man finished reading, he suddenly raised the scroll in his hand. The scroll flew all the way up and suddenly turned into a silver fire dragon that soared into the sky. When it reached the apex, it suddenly twisted its body and shattered into countless flames, falling on the grassland, burning all the wild grass in the area. However, after a few breaths of time, new and tender wild grass grew strangely on the scorched land. The whole process did not take more than 10 breaths of time, but it contained too many magical principles. The purpose of the written test was to test the magical principles contained in this scene. This is the topic of the first round of the written test of the mausoleum. All of you must have comprehended something. You have 1 day to write down your comprehensions on the scroll and send it back to the middle state. The emperors of the middle state will judge and determine the score. As soon as he finished speaking, the corpse devil old man turned his hand again and took out a piece of silver beast bone. After crushing it into bone powder in his palm, he threw it forward. Immediately, silver bone ashes fell with the wind. As soon as the ashes fell on the ground, They immediately turned into short tables that were supported by skeletons. There were 700 bone tables and 21 rows. There were a total of 35 rows. Not a single one was more, exactly the number of tribes in the southern border. In the past, the written test would randomly give a question to test the cultivator's comprehension. Unfortunately, there are too few wise people in the southern border. Almost none of them could get good results in the written test. Looking at the history of the southern border, there are only a few who could get more than 100 points in the written test. The written test is not important. The difference between the tribes is not too big. The difficult part is the combat test. Younger brother Ning, you don't have to care too much about the results of the written test. With younger brother Ning's cultivation base, it won't be difficult to get more than 1,000 points in the combat test. It will be enough for our Tower Wood tribe to get rid of the shame of being at the bottom. Tagore secretly gave Ning Fan a few reminders and gave him a palm-sized domino token. Then, he turned his head and gave out the bone token to the participating cultivators of the Tower Wood tribe. Ning Fan looked at the bone token in his hand. It was the item that he used to record his results. The front of the bone token was engraved with 2 words Ning Fan. It was his name. The back was used to record his results. Currently, his results were still 0. After all, the small competition of the southern border had not started yet. So the written test is not important. Ning Fan didn't comment on Tagore's words. He followed the participating cultivators, and slowly walked to their respective bone tables, and sat down cross-legged. On the bone table there was a bone brush, blood ink and a leather scroll. On the top left of the table, there was a groove with a strange beast face drawn on it. Many of the weak cultivators picked up their brushes as soon as they sat down, dipped them in ink and scribbled. Then they rolled up their scrolls and threw them into the beast face grooves on the table, along with their dominoes. Then, the groove of the beast face would close up and light would shine. After a while, the groove would open up again. There would be no leather scrolls inside, only the bone token. The bone token would record the results of the written test. The vast majority of cultivators wouldn't guard against others copying their answers, so Ning Fan was able to easily see some people's answers. I comprehended the fire ability to light the grass and the fire is very hot. This was the answer of some cultivators who had a low IQ. I feel indignant at the act of the holy envoy burning the southern grassland. This is the inheritance left to us by our ancestors. How can we blaspheme it? Fortunately, the grass grew back in the end. This was the answer written by a young cultivator who was full of resentment. I didn't comprehend it. There were also people who handed in blank answers. What made Ning Fan speechless was that even these retarded answers were secretly copied by many people. As for the plagiarism, the old man corpse demon didn't care at all. In just the time it took for an incense stick to burn, more than half of the cultivators had finished their answers. One should know that the time given for the written test was a whole day. Ning Fan looked to his side. The other 19 people of the Tower Wood tribe had already handed in their answers and received their results. Out of the 19 people, 18 of them got 0 points. The only one who got a point only got 1 point. Ning Fan remembered that person's answer was burning grass, fire restrains wood. Almost everyone in the 4 heavens knew about this kind of common knowledge, but in the Tower Wood tribe, that person could still get 1 point. They could only blame the people of the Tower Wood tribe for being retarded. It was already very rare for them to be able to answer the common knowledge of cultivation. Therefore, apart from Ning Fan, the total score of the Tower Wood tribe's written test was only 1 point. Fortunately, judging from the current situation, most of the people from the other tribes who had handed in their answers were also retarded. Their total score was only a few points, which was not much different from the Tower Wood tribe. However, this didn't mean that there were no normal cultivators in this place. There were at least 2 or 3 people from the other tribes who were still thinking, as if they had really comprehended something from the questions in the written test. Some of the stronger tribes like the Evil Goat tribe and the Summoning Wind tribe still had 11 or 12 people who were thinking hard with their eyes closed. As time went by, there would be people who were enlightened from time to time. These people weren't like those retarded cultivators. They would strictly isolate their answers to prevent others from seeing them. Of course, with Ningfan's cultivation base that was far beyond this place and the all-pervasive sense of the rain technique, he could still easily see everyone's answers. There were also other Shikong old monsters who could peek at the Duzhen cultivator's examination paper. The old corpse demon never stopped them. Being able to copy it was also considered a skill. After all, this was the cultivation world where the strong were respected, not the mortal imperial examination. One by one, the cultivators with normal minds handed in their answers. Most of the things they comprehended were related to the Dragon Transformation Scroll and the Fire Rain Dragon Transformation Scroll. Most of them only got around 5 to 6 points, which wasn't very high. After all, this written test was obviously not testing on divine abilities, but the comprehension of the Tao. Burning the grass, reviving the grass. Wildfire can't burn it. The spring wind blows the grass again gradually. Ningfan stopped caring about the results of others. Instead, he was immersed in his own comprehension of the Tao. He no longer treated the comprehension of the Tao as a competition. Instead, he had really gained something from it. He sat on the grass in front of the bone table. He didn't lift his brush to write for a long time. Instead, he closed his eyes and replayed the scene of the rebirth of the grass in his mind. 2 hours passed. Almost all the cultivators who were below the Shikong rank had handed in their answers. None of them had scored more than 10 points. Of course, there was also an exception. The young clan leader of the evil goat tribe, Xian Yuchun, who had a low IQ, actually fell asleep on the table and did not hand in his answer paper. For hours passed. Some of the Shikong cultivators began to hand in their answers one after another. Then the results of their answers began to appear. It's actually 30 points. What exactly did Wizard Heishan of the Black Mountain tribe answer? How did he get such a high score? Someone outside the venue suddenly exclaimed. Wizard Heishan seemed to be dissatisfied with his score. However, he did not dare to question it. This was the score given by the 5 emperors of the Middle State. How could a small Shikong cultivator like him have the right to question it? Forget it. The results of the written test aren't important. Everything will depend on the combat test. Wizard Heishan felt relieved when he thought about it. After Wizard Heishan, more and more Shikong cultivators obtained high scores. The Shikong tribe 35 points. The Shikong cultivator got such a high score. Old monster Yen Nen actually got 40 points. How is this possible? The White Ghost Kong cultivator of the White Ghost tribe actually got 45 points. 60 points. The 1,000-men commander of the Wind Summoning tribe, Nanji Long. Could this person be the first in the written test? Gradually, only Ningfan, the sleeping Xian Yuchen, and the Dark Sea Mage of the Sea Soul Division who had yet to submit their papers were left. The Dark Sea Master was born to live a simple life. He did not like to get involved in the schemes of the grassland. The Dark Sea tribe was also one of the few tribes that did not mock the Tamu tribe. 12 hours had passed since the start of the written test. The Dark Sea Master kept his eyes closed from the beginning until the 14th hour. Then he opened his eyes and slightly nodded as if he had learned something. Then he began to answer his answer. His score had also reached a new high in the last 100,000 years in the southern border. It was 400 points. He actually got 400 points. This person is indeed an old monster who has half a step into the thought fragmentation realm. The depth of his Tao comprehension is definitely the first in the southern border. Some of the cultivators of the southern border were shocked. Isn't this a bit too high? In the entire Debay realm, there are only a few who can get more than 400 points before they reach the thought fragmentation realm. And those who are able to do this in the future, at the very least, will not be lower than the Wangu realm. Someone who was good at research discovered this shocking fact. If that was the case, then this Dark Sea Master actually had the qualifications to aspire to the Wangu realm. Rumor has it that the great emperor of the Middle State has taken a liking to this Dark Sea Master's outstanding perception, and wants to take him as a disciple. I did not believe this at first, but now I do. It seems like this sea spirit tribe cannot be offended no matter what. Some old monsters secretly made up their minds. At this moment, the night had arrived. Dark Sea looked a little tired. It seemed like the 14 hours of hard thinking had consumed a lot of his mental energy. However, his eyes were relaxed. He slowly left the examination ground with an otherworldly posture. He looked like an old fisherman who was wandering the Jianghu. It was as if he did not care about anything other than himself. When he was about to leave the examination ground, he slightly turned his head and looked at Ning Fan with a serious expression. Then he frowned and looked at the sleeping Xian Yu-chun. There's no need to talk about this young master of the evil goat tribe. He only got 1 point in the previous written exam. I'm afraid he will directly fall asleep this time. It's not worth mentioning. However, this external cultivator with the surname Ning is an eternal immortal venerable. Even if his cultivation base is restricted, his Tao comprehension will not be restricted. I wonder how many points he will get. I'm afraid it will not be less than 500 points. 500 points. If the eternal immortal venerables were to participate, most of them would get this number. From this point, it could be seen how difficult it was for Dark Sea Master to get 400 points. Dark Sea would never underestimate anyone. However, he did not believe that Ning Fan could do better than those eternal immortal venerables. He was even more confident that if he was also an eternal immortal venerable, he would definitely get more than 500 points. Unfortunately, he had not completely broken through the bottleneck of the thought fragmentation realm. Fortunately, as long as he becomes the disciple of the great emperor of the Middle State, the day of him becoming an eternal immortal venerable would not be far away. Time continued to pass. The 10th hour, the 11th hour, the 12th hour. Xian Yu-chun suddenly woke up. He looked at the grassland that was illuminated by the morning sun. He was slightly dazed. Then he smacked his head and laughed. I forgot that this is the written exam. I actually fell asleep. Ahaha. Ahahaha. Immediately, it caused many cultivators in the surroundings to laugh mockingly. Each of the cultivators of the evil goat tribe felt a little embarrassed. They felt ashamed of their young master for falling asleep during the written exam. The patriarch of the evil goat tribe felt his face turn red. The woman he loved the most actually gave birth to such a stupid son. This is really embarrassing. Zai. Forget it. As your father, I don't expect you to get a good result. Just hurry up and take the exam. Quickly hand in your exam paper. The patriarch of the evil goat tribe shouted angrily. There's no hurry. There's no hurry. My master hasn't handed in his exam paper yet. I will wait for him to hand it in together. Xian Yu-chun was surprised to find out that Ning Fan had not handed in his exam paper either. He suddenly felt a little touched. His master has such a high cultivation base. His comprehension ability must be very high. Why did he take so long to hand in his exam paper? It must be because of him, Xian Yu-chun. He was afraid that he would feel lonely sleeping alone in the examination hall. That's why he came here to accompany him. A good man. A good man. Master. Thank you. Xian Yu-chun took the exam paper. He wanted to write this sentence on the paper and pass it to Ning Fan like a piece of paper. Currently, Ning Fan seemed to be deep in thought with his eyes closed. Thus, Xian Yu-chun did not dare to send him a voice transmission. He only dared to pass him a piece of paper. He could not tell if Ning Fan was thinking or sleeping. If Ning Fan was sleeping and he woke his master up, it would be too unfilial. Oh my, I forgot how to write the words "Thank you, Master." Xian Yu-chun felt a headache coming on. He asked his father through voice transmission. The face of the patriarch of the evil goat tribe darkened with anger. Why can't this silly son write such simple words? That's not the main point. The main point is that it's the answer sheet of the mausoleum seizing battle. How can I pass you a piece of paper? This is a serious crime. It's a blasphemy against the prestige of the sacred mountain. Hand in your exam paper now. Don't disturb your master's enlightenment. His words hit Xian Yu-chun's sore spot. How could a good disciple like him, who was born with the 24 filial piety sons, disturb his master's enlightenment? No way. At that moment, he did not want to waste any more time. He casually recalled the scene he saw during the day and realized that his mind was completely blank. Feeling helpless, he could only write some random words on the exam paper and hand it in. Not long after, the score was out. Xian Yu-chun of the evil goat tribe. 500 points. How is this possible? What did Xian Yuchun write? How could the 5 emperors of Middle State give him a high score of 500 points? I don't believe it. How can a fool get 500 points? Could it be that the 5 emperors of Middle State gave him the wrong score? Be careful with your words. We cannot criticize the 5 emperors. A few cultivators who were shocked quickly shut their mouths, because the old man's gloomy eyes had already locked onto those people who were speaking ill of the 5 emperors. Criticizing the 5 emperors behind their backs was a serious crime. If these people continued to speak, the old man did not mind enforcing the law on the spot to teach them a lesson. Of course, even this low-intelligence corpse demon was a little shocked. After all, no matter how he looked at this Xian Yuchun, he looked like a fool. He even slept in the exam hall for an entire day. If this kind of person could get 500 points, then anyone could get 1,000 points. Strange. Could it be that this kid is so talented that I couldn't see it? The old man started to doubt his own intelligence. The entire evil goat tribe was in a daze. Even the leader of the tribe, who had always been smart, could not figure out the situation. It was a pity that Xian Yuchun didn't understand what was so shocking about 500 points. 500 points didn't seem to be much different from 1 point. And 500 minus 1 equals 2, which was 2 points more than 1 point. There was nothing to be surprised about. Why was everyone making a fuss about it? The Dark Sea Mage, who was always calm and indifferent, also found it hard to calm down. If Ning Fan got 500 points, he could still comfort himself by saying that Ning Fan was an ancient immortal venerable and had the qualifications to surpass him. However, the one who got 500 points was Xian Yuchun. Even the Dark Sea Mage, who did not care about worldly affairs, had heard of this fool, whose name shook the entire southern border. This person had an extremely high aptitude for cultivation and had a unique understanding of the soul fusion secret technique. However, his mind was not complete. He often did stupid things that made people not know whether to laugh or cry. However, this person was able to get 500 points. This was the literary exam. Only those who were capable could qualify. How could this kid surpass me? What did you write on your answer scroll? The Dark Sea Mage suddenly walked over and asked in a deep voice. It was extremely impolite to ask for the answer of the other party, especially when the literary exam had not ended yet. It was highly likely that the answer would be leaked and others would get a higher score. Fortunately, Ning Fan was the only one who had not submitted his answer. Xian Yuchun respected Ning Fan as if he was a god. He was not worried that his answer would be leaked to Ning Fan at all. He even felt that his master copying his answer was a kind of recognition from his master. It was something worth celebrating. At that moment, he did not hide his answer anymore and directly said his answer loudly. I only wrote 2 sentences on my answer scroll. Is there a fire? Sorry, I didn't see it. The grass was burned? Sorry, I didn't see it. Xian Yuchun stretched his body helplessly. Actually, when the old man announced the exam questions, he was already dozing off. He did not see the scene of the wild grass being burned. When his father urged him to answer the questions, he honestly handed in an almost blank answer scroll. He said that he did not see anything and sincerely apologized to the 5 emperors of the Middle State. However, such an answer actually got him 500 points. It was 2 points more than the 1 point he expected. His luck could not be better. Haha. Why can this answer get 500 points? Didn't he not see anything? He didn't even see the exam questions. Shouldn't there be no results? Some cultivators did not understand. The Dark Sea Mage suddenly trembled. He quickly turned his head and looked at the scorched land that was burned. No. There was no fire here. This scorched land was fake. The scene of the wild grass coming back to life was also fake. Solve. The Dark Sea Mage suddenly made a hand seal and shouted. The scenery of this place suddenly changed. The scorched land disappeared. There was no trace of being burned. The new and tender wild grass also disappeared. It was the same withered and yellow wild grass that had grown for a season. Illusion technique. It's actually an illusion technique. He Ming Hai thought highly of himself. He did not realize that this exam question was just an illusion technique from the beginning. No fire, no wildfire burning the plains, no wild grass coming back to life. It was all an illusion technique. No wonder this kid said he did not see anything. So there was nothing at all. This kid is not stupid. He is obviously very smart but looks stupid. The Dark Sea Mage took a cold breath. All the contempt he had for Xianyu Chun was swept away and replaced with respect. If the Dark Sea Mage was not wrong, the illusion technique in this exam question came from the hands of the Middle State 5 emperors. Even the majority of Broken Thoughts could not see through it. This kid could do many things that Broken Thoughts could not. He deserved to get 500 points. His future was limitless. This child had seen through everything from the very beginning, so he didn't even think about it, and directly fell asleep. This kind of playful attitude was something that was rare and precious to cultivators, and it often allowed them to comprehend the truth of the Tao that others couldn't. This kid, he could not compare to him. Young friend, your talent is number 1 in the southern border. I'm afraid even that external cultivator with the surname Ning might not be able to compare to you. The Dark Sea Mage sighed. Wrong. That person is my master. How can I compare to even half a hair of my master? He is the true number 1 in the southern border. I only got 500 points. If it was my master, he could easily get 5,000 points. Xianyu Chun said unhappily. He would not allow the Dark Sea Mage to look down on his master. 5,000 points. Young friend, you must be joking. Since ancient times, there has never been anyone who could get 5,000 points in the first round of the theory exam. Even those great emperors could not do it when they were young. It is normal for that external cultivator with the surname Ning to get 500 points. If it was 1,000 points, it would be very difficult. If it was 5,000, hee. The Dark Sea Mage was shocked by Xianyu Chun's talent, and did not want to become enemies with this genius. Therefore, he only laughed at Xianyu Chun's nonsense and did not mind. Is 5,000 a lot? Isn't it just 2 points more than 500? Xianyu Chun was startled. How come no one had gotten this number before? Could it be that he had calculated wrongly? The Dark Sea Mage was startled. Even with his wisdom, he could not understand what Xianyu Chun meant. 5,000 is 2 points more than 500. What does this mean? 5,000 minus 500? Of course it is not 2. Could it be that this sentence has another meaning? Is he hinting something to me? The more the Dark Sea Mage thought about it, the more complicated it became. He vaguely felt that he was being hinted at, but he could not understand the key point. However, there were others who laughed disdainfully. Among them, the one who laughed the loudest was Nan Zhilong of the Wind Summoning Tribe. What a joke! If an external cultivator could get an unprecedented 5,000 points, then all of us cultivators should die of shame. As soon as he said this, countless people laughed along with Nan Zhilong. Xianyu Chun's face immediately darkened. If it was not because Nan Zhilong's cultivation was too high, he would definitely attack him immediately to protect his master. At this moment, someone suddenly exclaimed. It turned out that Ning Fan had ended his contemplation and handed in his script. His indifferent gaze suddenly turned to Nan Zhilong coldly. Nan Zhilong, who was originally laughing wildly, suddenly felt a bone-chilling coldness. Half of his laughter was directly choked in his throat. It could not go in, could not come out. His face turned red and his heart was trembling. What kind of terrifying gaze is that? This man must not be provoked. Otherwise, a great disaster will surely befall him. Not only Nan Zhilong, but all the cultivators who were swept by Ning Fan's gaze shut their mouths in horror. The entire place fell into dead silence. Xianyu Chun was extremely excited. What he admired was Ning Fan's domineering manner. Without saying a word, Ning Fan was able to intimidate the weak. What kind of devil might was that? May I know how many points fellow Taoists got? Master Ming Hai's question broke the atmosphere. Master Ming Hai was still very concerned about Ning Fan's results. I don't know. My score hasn't been given out yet. Ning Fan withdrew the coldness in his eyes and pointed at the groove of the beast face on the table. Only then did everyone notice that the groove of the beast face on Ning Fan's table had not been opened even after a long time. This meant that the 5 emperors of the Middle State had yet to give out Ning Fan's score. As time passed, another 2 hours had passed and Ning Fan's score still had not been given out. This was really a strange story in the Great Prairie. There had never been a cultivator who had not received his score after such a long time. Could it be that this person's answer made the 5 emperors of the Middle State unable to decide and give out an accurate score? Many people secretly guessed, but they felt that this idea was a little ridiculous. What kind of answer would make the 5 emperors unable to give out a score? It was a terrible answer. That's not right. Those cultivators who scored 0 points usually got their results very quickly. A particularly good answer? How good must it be for the 5 emperors to find it hard to choose? Middle State, Capital Heaven Peak. The results of the first round of the Mausoleum Seizing Battle must be decided by the 5 emperors of the Middle State together. This was an old rule. Just like the previous years, 4 of the 5 emperors of the Middle State gathered at Capital Heaven Peak to discuss the results of the group cultivators in the first round of the Mausoleum Seizing Battle. Among the 4 immortal emperors, there were Great Emperor Lu Tuo and Great Emperor Gu Ling. These 2 were not the ones with the most authority among the 4 emperors. On the contrary, the other 2 emperors had more authority. Of the remaining 2 emperors, one was dressed in red and green with a strange mask on his head that looked like he was smiling and crying at the same time. No one could see his true appearance. His emperor title was Buddha's Sob. It was said that he had comprehended a wondrous technique from the tear of the Buddha statue. As a result, he achieved Tao and used Buddha's Sob as his title. He was only a step away from stepping into the 7th tribulation. The other one was the one with the highest authority among the 5 emperors. He was an old man with an unusually cold face, giving people a feeling of meticulousness. His white beard reached the ground, and he was holding an iron crutch that was surrounded by flames. His emperor title was Capital Heaven, and Capital Heaven Peak was his immortal cave residence. There was a teleportation formation on Capital Heaven Peak. From time to time, the papers of the Mausoleum Seizing Battle would be sent over. Every time a paper was sent over, hundreds of disciples of the 4 emperors would read through it first. Those who were not good enough would be given to the 4 emperors for evaluation, and the results would be decided by the 4 emperors together. Normally, the first batch of papers that were sent over were filled in randomly by those who were not in their right mind. Most of them would be given 0 marks. The 3 great emperors, Capital Heaven Do, Lu Tuo and Gu Ling, didn't care much about these papers. On the contrary, Buddha's Sob Great Monarch was very interested in them, and would read them together with his disciples. Interesting. As expected, there are many strange papers in this year's theory exam. It's not in vain that I ended my seclusion early to participate in this grand event. It's a pity that Taoist 100 Flowers can't make it here, and won't be able to see these funny papers. Hee, what a pity. Buddha's Sob Great Monarch let out a strange laugh, and suddenly looked at Emperor Lu Tuo with deep meaning. Emperor Lu Tuo was slightly startled. Then he continued calmly, "That's right. Taoist 100 Flowers' injuries are too severe and she can't make it here. It's really a pity." 1,000 years ago, Taoist 100 Flowers entered the ominous region to collect herbs, but was besieged by a Triflame's immortal emperor-level corpse devil. I wonder what Taoist Lu Tuo thinks about this. Buddha's Sob Great Monarch let out a strange laugh. "What? Taoist fellow Taoist, are you suspecting that I'm the culprit?" Lu Tuo's expression immediately darkened. I didn't say anything. There's no need for Taoist fellow Taoist to explain so quickly." Before Buddha's Sob Great Monarch could finish his sarcasm, a reprimanding voice suddenly resounded. "Enough. I didn't come to my heaven capital peak today to settle the old scores with you. If anyone dares to do something unrelated, don't blame me for exercising my authority to punish them." As soon as Heaven Capital Great Monarch said that, not only Buddha's Sob Great Monarch and Lu Tuo's expressions changed, even Bone Spirit Great Monarch showed a trace of fear. His expression turned serious and he didn't dare to talk nonsense anymore. The followers of the 4 great monarchs didn't dare to speak anymore. Each of them sat upright and still, confirming the results. Apart from the occasional argument, no one dared to say anything. The atmosphere was quite heavy. The 4 great monarchs didn't talk much either. Occasionally they would speak, but it was only to comment on the answers. Of course, The one who spoke the most was Buddha's Sob, great monarch. Not bad, not bad. A little kid from the Sandwolf tribe of the Yellow Sand Grassland can actually answer such a question on the Tao of Fire. I'll give you 200 points. This is not bad. Someone from the West River Grassland actually answered the 5 Fire and 5 Earth. I'll give you 150 points. This is a little lacking. Let's give you 2 points. Alright, I've forgotten that this kid is your Bone Spirit Great Monarch's disciple. 300 points will do. Qiu Long of the Northern Barbarian Tribe. The Northern Barbarian Tribe is really full of talents. Another person like him has appeared. I'll give him 400 points. Sea Soul Tribe of the Southern Border. Oh, that kid from the Sea Soul Tribe. He should be an old man now, right? His comprehension is very deep. He can actually see a trace of change in the Tao Law. This person has the potential to become an immortal venerable. I'll give him 400 points as well. In this written test, there were only slightly more than 10 people who could get 400 points. Most of these people would be remembered by the great monarchs of the Middle Province as their future disciples. Naturally, they wouldn't be stingy in giving them points. 108 grasslands, 3,000 tribes, and 60,000 answers were gradually distributed. The 4 great monarchs had different expressions. Some were disappointed because they might have taken a fancy to a junior, but it didn't satisfy them. Some were delighted because they might have found a good seedling. Suddenly, another answer came into the eyes of the 4 great monarchs. Evil Goat Tribe of the Southern Border, Xin Yu Chun. There are a lot of good seedlings in the Southern Border this time. Take a look at this kid's answer. After Great Monarch Buddha Sob read Xin Yu Chun's answer, his eyes slightly narrowed. He passed the answer to the other 3 great monarchs and gave Great Monarch Lu Tuo a strange look. Great Monarch Bone Spirit's expression also changed after reading the answer. Even Great Monarch Tian Du, who was always serious in speech and manner, showed a hint of surprise. Only Great Monarch Lu Tuo's expression changed. This Evil Goat Tribe brat is quite impressive. He actually saw through fellow Taoist Lu Tuo's illusion technique. He's really a good seedling. Of course, it's also possible that fellow Taoist Lu Tuo's illusion technique is too lousy, allowing a life immortal junior to see through it. Great Monarch Buddha Sob laughed strangely. Humph. This old man's illusion technique naturally can't be wrong. It's this little thing's eyes that are too sharp. Of course, it's also possible that this kid gave a random answer and coincidentally guessed the truth. Lu Tuo said coldly. At first, he still had a trace of admiration for Xin Yu Chun. However, after being ridiculed by Great Monarch Buddha Sob, he immediately vented his anger on Xin Yu Chun. Guessed. If this kid can even guess the truth correctly, I'll be even more interested in him. I'll give him 500 points. Does anyone have any objections? Great Monarch Buddha Sob asked smilingly. If this kid can see through fellow Taoist Lu Tuo's illusion technique with his life immortal cultivation, then 500 points is definitely not too high. Great Monarch Bone Spirit agreed. This old man has no objections. Great Monarch Tian Du said with indescribable joy and anger. As such, Great Monarch Lu Tuo naturally couldn't raise any objections either. Xin Yu Chun's 500 points was confirmed just like that. The time for the theory test was about to end. There were almost no more test papers being delivered. The few great monarchs were almost ready to wait for the final result of the combat test. Suddenly, another answer paper was delivered. It was also from the southern border. Oh, it's the answer paper of the Tamu tribe. Great Monarch Buddha Sob looked at Great Monarch Lu Tuo with a strange expression, causing Great Monarch Lu Tuo to harumph coldly. Most of the great monarchs had heard about Lu Tuo's bullying of the Tamu tribe, but none of them would stand up for the Tamu tribe. After all, the Tamu tribe was just a weak and small tribe. There wasn't any outstanding talent in the tribe that could attract the attention of the great monarchs. Naturally, no one would do such a thankless thing. This answer paper. Great Monarch Buddha Sob wanted to use the topic of the Tamu tribe to mock Lu Tuo. Suddenly his expression changed and he was so shocked that he couldn't say a word. The other 3 great monarchs were naturally curious when they saw how shocked Buddha Sob was. They spread out their divine senses to check the answer paper. After reading it, All of them were shocked. There wasn't a single word on the entire answer paper. There was only a circle with a gap that couldn't be closed. This kid actually saw the completion. Is this a coincidence or? Chapter 1007. Perfection was the realm that countless quasi-saints pursued. As the descendants of the saints, the 5 emperors of the central state naturally had some understanding of perfection. It could even be said that the tomb-seizing battle itself was closely related to the illusory concept of perfection. The saints were turned into a mountain with 12 mausoleum veins. The mausoleum veins contain the perfection Tao intent left behind by the saint after his death. This perfection Tao intent was a great fortune for any second-step cultivator. One of the benefits of the perfection Tao intent was that it could help a cultivator perfect their divine abilities and cultivation methods, causing them to gradually reach perfection. Lu Tua Emperor had once paid a huge price in exchange for the opportunity to cultivate in the mausoleum vein of the sacred mountain. He had perfected many of his divine abilities in the mausoleum vein. Because of this, his illusory technique always carried a trace of perfection. This point could only be seen through by those immortal emperors who had a deep understanding of perfection. However, Ning Fan saw through this and drew a circle with a gap on the answer sheet. This young man drew this circle. If it's a coincidence, then it's fine. If it's not a coincidence, then his eyesight is truly terrifying. Not only could this young man see the perfection in fellow Taoist Lu Tuo's illusory technique, but he could also see that the perfection is just an appearance. In fact, there's still a gap. That's why the circle drawn by this young man has a gap. We are not third-step cultivators. Even if we have some understanding in the mausoleum vein of the sacred mountain, how can we truly cultivate to perfection? At most, we can only infuse the concept of perfection into our divine abilities. But even the concept of perfection is extremely difficult to achieve. I want this young man. The number 1 disciple of my Buddha Weeping Battle sect is none other than this young man. The Buddha Weeping Great Emperor's eyes sparkled. The reason why the 5 emperors of the central state paid so much attention to the first round of the tomb-seizing battle was because they wanted to find some good talents in the prairies. Now that such an outstanding cultivator like Ning Fan had appeared, the Buddha Weeping Great Emperor naturally wouldn't let him go. Once he accepted Ning Fan as his disciple, he would definitely nurture him as the number 1 disciple. Tiandu Great Emperor received the scroll and looked at the gap repeatedly. The more he looked at it, the more shocked he became. He had a deeper understanding of perfection compared to the other 3 emperors. That was why he could see something that the other 3 emperors couldn't. The incomplete circle on the scroll was not a simple drawing. Every stroke of the scroll contained a trace of Ning Fan's comprehension. Emperor Tiandu held the scroll with one hand while the index finger of his other hand slowly traced the circle that Ning Fan had drawn. His concentration was unprecedentedly focused. Gradually, he sensed a strong qi from the circle. Caught off guard, his hands trembled and he almost lost his grip on the scroll. Imitation. Within this circle, this child had fused a trace of the imitated will of perfection. Is it an imitation of Lu Tuo's illusion? If he had only seen through perfection, he might have been suspected of cheating, but he couldn't rule out the possibility of coincidence. But if this kid was able to imitate it slightly, then this kid would absolutely be slightly terrifying. Even if this kid's imitation was rather crude and clumsy, but it had to be known that this kid had only used a single day to imitate a trace of the intent of perfection. In just one day, how could the Tao intent of a saint be so easily imitated? Emperor Tiandu asked himself. Before breaking through to the immortal emperor realm, he couldn't even see the intent of perfection. Even after breaking through to the immortal emperor realm, it took him countless years to imitate the Tao intent of perfection. Although Ning Fan's understanding of perfection couldn't be compared to his, he had only used a single day to imitate it. This kid isn't a fish in a pond. Emperor Tiandu praised. Oh, it seems like you are very satisfied with this kid. Don't tell me you want to snatch this disciple from this old man? Fo Chi said with a strange smile. Why can't I snatch him? You should know what it means for this kid to be able to see the intent of perfection before breaking through to the immortal emperor realm. If that's the case, even this old man has no choice but to pay attention to this kid. As soon as Emperor Tiandu's words fell, the other three emperors' faces turned solemn. In the entire history of Great Bay, there were only 3 people who could see the intent of perfection before breaking through to the immortal emperor realm. The first person betrayed the 3 flames and became the leader of the Void Flame, causing many immortal emperors of the sacred mountain to tremble in fear upon hearing his name. The second person stole into the sacred tomb, and was the first person to successfully rob a tomb. His whereabouts were still unknown until now. The third person was still sitting in front of the sacred ancient stone, comprehending the 10,000 deciphering 1 deciphering 10,000 chants. The fourth person was Ning Fan. Of course, there was one more thing that the Celestial Emperor did not mention. Even the 3 of them could not imitate a trace of perfect intent within a day, before they entered the immortal Emperor realm. However, Ning Fan was able to do it. This only meant that Ning Fan's aptitude was even higher than those 3 people. Perhaps he was still unknown now, but it was highly possible that he would surpass those 3 people in the future. As a result, even Emperor Tiandu, who did not like to take in disciples, could not help but have the thought of taking in a disciple and competing with Buddha tier. It seems like it won't be that easy to accept this disciple. The one sitting in front of the sacred ancient stone seemed to have obtained 3,000 points in the written exam. In my opinion, we should also give him 3,000 points. After all, there are precedents to follow. Emperor Fuqi said. 3,000 points, huh? This is feasible. Emperor Tiandu nodded slightly. However, when he saw Bone Spirit and Lu Tuo's strange expressions, he couldn't help but feel curious. Why don't the 2 of you say anything? Do you think that 3,000 points is too high? Fellow Taoist Tiandu, you haven't been to the southern border before. There are some things that you don't know. This Ning Fan isn't a native cultivator of the Pagoda Wood tribe. He's an external cultivator. So, do you think that 3,000 points is too high? Emperor Lu Tuo's tone was full of disdain when he said the words external cultivator. As soon as he said that, the atmosphere turned cold. External cultivator. This young man is actually an external cultivator. Is he really an external cultivator? Emperor Tiandu said coldly. Absolutely. If not, I would also be willing to accept this disciple. Unfortunately, such a talent isn't from my tribe. Emperor Bone Spirit shook his head. The atmosphere turned silent for a moment. Emperor Tiandu casually threw Ning Fan's answer scroll on the table in front of him. The other emperors also didn't bother to look at the answer scroll. How do we determine this young man's score? Emperor Bone Spirit asked. Any number is fine. Since this young man isn't from my tribe, his score isn't important. I'm too lazy to ask about it. Immortal emperors like us don't need to interfere in the martial exam. I still have a cauldron of pills that is about to be completed. I'll go check on the fire now. Fellow Taoists, please help yourselves. Emperor Tiandu said indifferently and turned around to leave. What a pity. What a pity. I'll leave this young man's score to fellow Taoist Bone Spirit and fellow Taoist Lu Tuo. Emperor Fuqi gave Lu Tuo a meaningful glance and left Tiandu peak with his disciples. Since fellow Taoist Tiandu and Fuqi have left, I'll leave too. I'll leave this young man's score to fellow Taoist Lu Tuo. You should know that this young man brought a rare medicine soul to my tribe this time. We need to give him a certain amount of respect. Fellow Taoist Lu Tuo, when you decide the score, please abandon your prejudice against external cultivators and Tamu and give him a fair score. As soon as Emperor Bone Spirit's voice fell, Emperor Lu Tuo let out a cold harumph. I don't need fellow Taoists to remind me. That's for the best. The Bone Spirit Great Emperor left with his disciples. Only Emperor Lu Tuo, his disciples and a few guards of Tiandu Peak were left. Ancestor, how many points are you going to give this young man? A short cultivator among Emperor Lu Tuo's disciples suddenly asked. He's just an external cultivator. Of course, I can't give him too high a score. Giving him points isn't the main point. Take this young man's bone token as well. I can't interfere with the results of the martial exam, but I have a way to stop the Tamu tribe from making a comeback. Emperor Lu Tuo sneered. Time passed slowly. 2 hours had passed since the end of the exam, but Ning Fan's score was still not out yet. Discussions could be heard in the surroundings from time to time, guessing the reason. Ning Fan didn't care about any of this. Ning Fan stood on the grassland with no one around him. He looked at the sky, the ground and the wild grass that bowed their heads in the wind. His expression was thoughtful. Even if he didn't use his celestial being Dharma eyes, he could see that the blazing wildfire was just an illusion with his Fu Li tribe's talent in breaking illusions. Illusions weren't the main point. The main point was that the scene contained unimaginable mysteries, and even a trace of perfection. Wildfire can't burn it down. It grows again when the spring breeze blows. The beauty of grass lies in its tenacity, softness, flexibility and accumulation on the ground. Tenacity means unyielding. Softness means no harm. Taking advantage of the situation allows one to seek luck and avoid calamity. Wildfire can't burn it down. It's not that the wild grass is stronger than the fire. It's that the wild grass knows how to avoid the situation. Although the fire is fierce, its weakness is obvious. Because of its fierce momentum, it can't last long. Eventually, the fire will be extinguished. Although the wild grass is weak, it can take root in the ground and use the terrain to protect itself. Once the fire is extinguished, the grass will be reversed. If I can answer the question of the momentum of the grass, it might be the best answer in the eyes of the question setter. If I can answer the question of the changes of the Tao laws, I'm sure I can get a good result, even though it's not as good as the momentum. When the Dark Sea Master handed in his paper, Ning Fan could still see his answer through his spirit sense even though he did not open his eyes. The Dark Sea Master's answer was only slightly related to the changes of the Tao laws, and he already got 400 points. If he can answer the question of the complete changes of the Tao laws, he would definitely get a higher result. If he can answer the question of the momentum of the grass, he would probably get a higher result. My answer isn't the momentum of the Tao laws, or the changes of the Tao laws. It's perfection. Ning Fan's eyes turned serious. He had drunk Tantai Weiyu's clear water wine, and seen the perfection in it. In the scene of the blazing wildfire, Ning Fan also sensed a trace of perfection. It wasn't that the person who cast the illusion had cultivated to the perfection realm of the third step. Instead, it was an imitation of the perfection realm. However, the perfection realm was fake and had a huge flaw. For example, the ring was imperfect. It couldn't be compared to the perfection realm in the clear water wine. The reason why Ning Fan drew a circle on the paper was to hint at this point. This place was Great Bay, the place where the descendants of the saints lived. Since the person who came up with the questions could imitate a trace of the perfection realm, he or she would naturally have some understanding of the word perfection. With the shrewdness of the 5 emperors of the Middle State, it was impossible for them not to understand the meaning of the circle. Being able to see the perfection realm unique to the third step saints should be better than peeking at the momentum of the Tao laws. Besides, Ning Fan even tried to imitate a trace of the perfection realm in the circle. How could it be so easy to imitate the perfection realm? Even though Ning Fan had the comprehension ability of the second level of the celestial being realm, he could only imitate a very clumsy trace of it. However, what Ning Fan did not expect was that just by imitating a very clumsy trace of the perfection realm, his illusory technique had improved a little. The trace of perfection realm in his illusory technique was originally comprehended by Lu Tua after years of arduous cultivation. It could greatly reduce the flaws of the illusory technique he cast, making it more realistic and perfect. Ning Fan could only slightly increase the power of his illusory technique by imitating Lu Tua. Even so, he had already gained a lot. Unfortunately, the perfection realm that I imitated was obtained by someone else. Because I don't have enough understanding of the perfection realm, the second time I imitated it, there would naturally be more flaws. The perfection realm is not something that the current me can comprehend. Ning Fan felt slightly regretful. Xin Yuchun saw that Ning Fan was still in deep thought, and did not dare to disturb him. He stood at one side respectfully. Those who did not know would really think that Xin Yuchun was Ning Fan's disciple. After an unknown amount of time, a clicking sound was suddenly heard from the surrounding discussions. Immediately, everyone's attention was attracted by that sound. They saw that the groove of the beast face on Ning Fan's bone table suddenly opened. The southern region originally did not care about the results of the written exam. But today, all the cultivators here were curious about Ning Fan's results. Xian Yuchun was the first to rush over, and picked up the domino token excitedly. However, when he saw the result, he was immediately dumbfounded. How is this possible? Ning Fan's result was actually 0 points. A commotion broke out in the surroundings. After waiting bitterly for 2 hours, such a result was obtained. Immediately, some people who did not like Ta Mu secretly sneered. This person is an ancient immortal venerable in vain. He can't even get half a point. Of course, it is also possible that someone from the 5 emperors interfered and erased this person's results. If that is the case, could this be done by Great Emperor Lu Tua? After all, Great Emperor Lu Tua dislikes the Ta Mu tribe and hates external cultivators even more. The White Ghost tribe's White Ghost master secretly guessed. He was even more determined to humiliate the Ta Mu tribe in the written exam in order to gain Great Emperor Lu Tuo's favor. Nan Zhilong heaved a sigh of relief and then laughed. This is the result of offending Great Emperor Lu Tua. Even if you are an ancient immortal venerable, don't think of standing up for the Ta Mu tribe. The Dark Sea Master secretly sighed. If the Great Emperor of the Central State interfered, it would be useless no matter how deep your comprehension is. Otherwise, with this immortal venerable's Tao comprehension, how could his score be low thus? When the results of the written exam were calculated, the Ta Mu tribe's total score was 1 point, temporarily at the bottom. The second-last Kanjun tribe also got 4 points in the written exam. Each of the Kanjun tribe's cultivators looked at the Ta Mu tribe's cultivators with a gloating expression. Master, this score must be given wrongly. It's impossible for you to have no results. Xian Yuchun couldn't believe it. It's fine. Give me the bone tablet. Ning Fan said it was fine, but his eyes had a trace of coldness. He took the bone tablet and glanced at the score on it. 0. Hee, what a good 0. Of course, his score couldn't be this low. If it was just 0, the 5 emperors of the Central State wouldn't delay for 2 hours before giving out the results. There must be some other reason behind this. It could be Great Emperor Lu Tua who interfered. It could also be his identity as an external cultivator that caused trouble. Or it could be both. Although this matter was unfair, he was an outsider and had no leeway to object. Being unable to object didn't mean that he should silently accept everything. Ning Fan tried his best to suppress the negative emotions in his heart. Reason told him that he could still get points in the written exam. There was no need for the Great Emperor of the Central State to decide the score. How many points one could get depended on one's own strength. Thus, the 5 emperors of the Central State couldn't interfere. However, his heart couldn't calm down no matter what. This is... Ning Fan suddenly felt a chill in his heart. A sense of vigilance suddenly rose in his heart. Without any hesitation, he threw the bone tablet away and retreated without saying anything. His spirit sense locked on the bone tablet, as if he was facing a great enemy. There was a speck of dust on the bone tablet. It was a speck of greenish-gray dust. Even though it was just a speck of dust, it alerted Ning Fan. There was something wrong with this speck of dust. The exam paper used for this exam was called the display delivery paper, and the bone tablet was called the display delivery token. Both of them were special magical tools that could be used to teleport directly to the heavenly capital peak of the Central State through the groove in the beast face. Ning Fan was very sure that before the bone tablet was placed into the groove, it didn't have this speck of dust with a dangerous chi. But now it did. If it wasn't for his sharp senses, he wouldn't have noticed it at all. The moment Ning Fan let go of the bone tablet, a sudden change occurred. All of a sudden, a green-gray flame burst out from the bone tablet that Ning Fan had thrown far away. It directly hit Ning Fan's chest. Its speed was so fast that it was unimaginable. There was no way for him to dodge it. That greenish-gray object was none other than a speck of dust. It seemed to be light as if it was weightless. However, when it hit Ning Fan's body, it was indescribably heavy. It actually had the force of a landslide. With a loud rumble, it sent Ning Fan flying. The shockwave that was produced shook countless Debay cultivators in the surroundings, and made them lose their balance. What happened? Was that external cultivator with the surname Ning attacked by something? What exactly is that terrifying shockwave? That greenish-gray light looks very familiar. Could it be? Impossible. Stone flame cultivators can't leave the ominous territory. Could it be that a stone flame cultivator sneaked into the Debay grassland? Otherwise, why would a stone flame divine ability appear in this place? Even though this external cultivator with the surname Ning's cultivation base is limited, he isn't someone who can be defeated by ordinary stone flame divine abilities. Who is the one who attacked him? What is his cultivation base? Just the aftershock alone killed more than 100 people. All of a sudden, the place was in chaos. Each of the old monsters' expressions changed greatly. They frantically released their spirit sense to search the grassland, trying to find the person who launched the sneak attack. However, they could not find the culprit at all. There were also some Debay cultivators who were upright and honest. They wanted to help Ning Fan to resist that greenish-gray light. However, before they could even get close to it, they were all knocked back by waves of shockwaves. Boom boom boom, the speed of that greenish-gray dust was too fast. It crashed into Ning Fan again and again. Even with the strength of Ning Fan's physical body, he could not completely withstand the force of the collision. He was knocked away by that speck of dust again and again. As a result, he had no choice but to secretly activate a trace of the protective golden light of the God-vanquishing shield in order to completely neutralize the force of the collision. Even so, Ning Fan was still knocked away by that speck of dust. Unbeknownst to him, he had already left the crowd. Once he was far away from the crowd, that speck of dust suddenly hovered above Ning Fan. It grew with the wind and instantly turned into a greenish-gray mountain. There were no plants on the mountain, only bluestones. There was a mouth at the top of the mountain. The middle of the mountain was burning with gray flames. It was actually a volcano. That mountain kept hovering, and its momentum became stronger and stronger. It seemed to have already connected with the mountains and rivers of this place. Then with a loud bang, it smashed down on Ning Fan. Its speed was so fast that it seemed to have landed on the grassland in an instant. Rumble. The entire grassland shook violently for a long time like an earthquake. Only then did it calm down. As for Ning Fan, he was already suppressed by the mountain. Each of the Debay cultivators gasped. Only now did they see the true appearance of the mountain. Bluestone Gray Flame Volcano. This is Shi Yan's ability. It can't be wrong. Could it be that it's really a Shi Yan cultivator who suppressed that external cultivator with the surname Ning? We can't see any traces of Shi Yan cultivators in this place. Logically speaking, it's impossible for Shi Yan cultivators to leave the ominous territory. Could it be that some old monster Shi Yan used a medium to cast a spell to suppress him? This matter must be reported to the central state immediately. As for the martial test, I don't know if it can continue. We have to listen to the central state's opinion. As for that external cultivator with the surname Ning, some of the cultivators of the southern region began to use secret techniques to report what happened just now to the central state. The old man Shiremo also reported the same thing. However, the reply he received was that the martial test would continue regardless of the weather. The old man Shiremo landed at the foot of the bluestone volcano with a solemn expression. He tried to cast a spell to blast open the volcano and release Ning Fan, who was suppressed by the mountain. However, he was shocked to find that it was impossible for him to do so with his current cultivation base at the early sense fragmentation realm. The one suppressing this person is at least a stone flame immortal king, or even stronger. The old man Shiremo was secretly shocked. Why would the stone flame immortal king want to suppress an external cultivator? Logically speaking, the cultivators of the three flames immortal king would not reject external cultivators. Why would he do that? Could it be that there is more to this matter? May I ask, what should we do with the martial test? Should we suspend it temporarily and hold it another day? Some of the leaders of the tribes asked. No need. Everything will continue as usual. There must be no mistakes. The old man Shiremo answered. The external cultivator of my tribe is still being suppressed under this mountain. Please help us save that person. The leader of the Towerwood tribe, Tagu, pleaded. I can't save this person. I can only wait for the central state to send someone to rescue him. It will take at least 3 to 5 days. The old man Sure said indifferently. What? 3 to 5 days? If I'm not mistaken, this volcano is the special ability of the Stone Flame tribe to suppress their enemies. If the person who is being suppressed is not rescued in time, he will more or less be injured by the scorching chi in the mountain. Besides, this person is a participant of my Towerwood tribe. If he doesn't participate in the martial test, my tribe won't have any chance of winning. The martial test will begin after the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. It's already a foregone conclusion that this person will be trapped here. Unless he can break open this mountain before the martial test ends, he will definitely not be able to participate in the test. According to the rules of the tomb seizing battle, only the cultivators who are on the list before the minor competition can participate in the martial test. In other words, if this person doesn't participate, your tribe can only send 19 people to take his place. As soon as the old man Sure finished speaking, he no longer paid attention to Ta Ge. Instead, he displayed his ability to arrange the venue of the martial test. Ning Fan still felt a little dizzy. It took him a lot of effort to get rid of the dizziness in his head. In front of him was a greenish-gray stone wall space. The space was extremely narrow. It was located in the middle of the volcano. The air was hot and stuffy. There were also greenish-gray flames and smoke that blew past. Ning Fan's heart was cold. He was suppressed by a sneak attack. This was an extremely high-grade suppression ability. Besides, the person who used this ability was definitely not weaker than an immortal emperor. If it wasn't because of this ability, Ning Fan would definitely not be unable to escape and be suppressed under this mountain. This scene was the same as when he was suppressed by Great Emperor Chonghe in the past. He could not even resist. The gap was so huge. The person who suppressed me is at least an immortal emperor. But there is one thing that makes me curious. Which immortal emperor is the one who attacked me? While Ning Fan was guessing, an indifferent voice suddenly sounded in the silent stone wall space. You are traveling together with that 5-colored medicine soul. Due to the rules of the sacred mountain, I can't kill you. However, I can trap you here and force you to submit. If you don't want to die, break free from this punishment ring and rush out of this mountain with your immortal venerable realm cultivation base. The voice was sometimes deep and sometimes soft. It was unpredictable. It seemed to be able to disguise itself, making people unable to tell who it was. However, there was no doubt that it was an immortal emperor realm cultivator. After that voice, there was no more sound. Ning Fan's face turned pale. First, he was erased by the great emperor of the central state. Then he was trapped in the middle of this volcano. Even with his calm temperament, he could not help but feel angry. With a sway of his body, he attempted to break through the stone wall. However, as soon as he came into contact with the stone wall, numerous cracks that were emitting flames immediately appeared on it. Those cracks kept spreading, seemingly forming formation marks. All of a sudden, an extremely strong restrictive force spread out, forcing Ning Fan to retreat, preventing him from getting close to the stone wall. The formation here is quite profound. However, it's not enough to trap me. Ning Fan's aura suddenly changed. The anger in his eyes disappeared, and was replaced by extreme calmness and depth. His eyes were extremely deep like the vast starry sky. Under his gaze, it was as if all the changes in the world could not escape from his eyes. He had actually activated the East Demon Ancestor's ultimate technique, the secret of force. In Ning Fan's eyes, be it the stone wall or the flames, they all became the lines of the grand force that intersected with each other. The complicated formation marks on the stone wall gradually became clear in Ning Fan's eyes. After an unknown amount of time, Ning Fan suddenly took a step forward, leaving a golden flame footprint on the stone ground. It was difficult to say how ingenious that step was. With just a single step, it actually messed up the grand force of this place. Once the grand force was in chaos, the formation naturally could not be maintained. Ning Fan did not stop. He took one step after another in a strange manner. Every time he took a step, a strong gust of wind would rise from the ground. After 9 steps, cracking sounds could be heard from the stone wall all of a sudden. It was the formation marks that were damaged. Oh. Is the evil-suppressing volcano that I casually learned not enough to trap this young man? Great Emperor Lu Tuo, who was in the central state, suddenly exclaimed softly. At this moment, he had already left the Tiandu Peak with his disciples, and was heading back to his cave dwelling. When he noticed that Ning Fan was about to break through the suppression of the volcano, he was no longer in a hurry. Instead, he randomly found a grassland and opened up a temporary underground cave dwelling. Then he began to cast a spell across the domain. In the space inside the mountain, the stone walls were peeling off layer by layer. The formation was being destroyed by Ning Fan bit by bit. All of a sudden, a red and white flame burst out from the stone wall in front of Ning Fan, heading straight for his face. Ning Fan's eyes suddenly turned serious. This red and white flame was extremely powerful. Its grade was actually at the Xiantian realm. It seemed to be the innate true fire that the person who attacked him had cultivated for many years. Just the heat that came towards him was enough to make him feel a burning pain. If he was burned by this flame, it was possible that he would be severely injured given his current cultivation base. How could Ning Fan dare to underestimate this flame? While retreating, he spat out his own devil flames in an attempt to fight against this flame. The two flames clashed. In just a few exchanges, Ning Fan's devil flames were forced to retreat. After the innate true fire defeated the devil flames, it did not continue to attack Ning Fan. Instead, it just surrounded the space inside the stone wall, as if it was determined to trap Ning Fan there. Ning Fan tried a few times, but he still could not break through the seal of the Sea of Flames. Lu Tuo, who was in the central state, suddenly revealed a satisfied smile. If that's the case, this young man won't be able to make it in time for the martial examination. Ning Fan brought a rare medicine soul into Great Bay. According to the rules of the sacred mountain, Lu Tuo was not allowed to harm Ning Fan's life. He did not like Ta Mu and hated external cultivators even more. Now that Ning Fan wanted to stand up for Ta Mu, he naturally had to suppress him. With his cultivation base, he could trap Ning Fan for a few days with just a little trick. A few days later, even if Ning Fan is rescued, he would have missed the martial examination. Without Ning Fan's Ta Mu tribe, they would still have no chance to make a name for themselves in the southern state. Of course, if Ning Fan is forced to directly destroy the punishment ring and rush out of the volcano after recovering his cultivation base, that would be even better. As an external cultivator, if he destroys the punishment ring after accepting it, it would be a heinous crime. He would be hunted down by the 5 emperors of the central state. At that time, even if this young man had a rare medicine soul, he would not be able to save his life. As for the Ta Mu tribe, they were Ning Fan's guarantor. If Ning Fan destroys the punishment ring without permission, the Ta Mu tribe would also be implicated. Feng Er, the people of the Ta Mu tribe killed you. Due to my identity, I can't massacre the Ta Mu tribe and avenge you. The only thing I can do is to make sure that the people of the Ta Mu tribe will never rise again. I'm sorry. Lu Tuo's face showed a moment of heartache. Then, it turned into his usual gloomy expression. Those disciples looked at Lu Tuo with burning eyes. Lu Tuo was definitely not a good person. However, he was very protective of his disciples. Therefore, among the 5 emperors of the central state, he was the one who was most popular with his disciples. Let's go. That young man won't be able to escape from my suppression. Lu Tuo Emperor chuckled and left with his disciples. Ning Fan was trapped inside the volcano. Looking at the innate true flames that were trapping him, his eyes flashed with ruthlessness. The power of the phoenix yin yang was secretly circulating within his body. Since I can't break out of the sea of flames, there's no need for me to do so. I'll just devour these innate true flames directly. He had never been a person who would suffer losses, not even in this place where he had to make compromises. Chapter 1008. The Phoenix clan was the king of the winged demons. Their chi was different from the filthy and evil aura of the Fuli clan. They often gave people a sense of nobility and holiness. As soon as Ning Fan circulated the power of the Phoenix yin-yang technique, his chi changed. The devilish aura around him gradually disappeared. and was replaced by an unprecedented sense of holiness and solemnity. Part of his body began to turn into flames. Then his entire body turned into raging pitch-black flames. With a sway of his body, he dashed towards the stone wall. The innate true flames that covered the surface of the stone wall began to flicker unsteadily under the suppression of Ningfan's aura of the phoenix race. However, the flickering only lasted for a moment, and it returned to normal very quickly. As Ningfan approached the stone wall, red and white waves of flames immediately gushed out from the stone wall. They actually carried a large amount of greenish-gray magma with them, and rushed towards Ningfan in an attempt to stop him. Even though the innate talent of the Phoenix clan was the ability to control fire, Ningfan's cultivation base was limited. Thus, he naturally did not dare to get sucked into the flames. When he came to a sudden stop, he suddenly performed a series of strange demon hand seals with both of his hands. His primordial spirit flew out from the top of his head and turned into a palm-sized black phoenix. The black phoenix's eyes were cold and emotionless. It ignored the might of the innate fire and opened its mouth to suck in the red and white flames. That action of sucking had mobilized all of the power of the Phoenix yin-yang technique. It directly controlled the changes of the Tao laws of fire in this place, preventing the red and white flames from approaching or retreating. It was as if space had been frozen. It could only stand there and allow the black phoenix to absorb it without any resistance. However, the force of the flames was too great. The black phoenix only absorbed a small amount of the flames before its face filled with pain. When it reached its limit, it withdrew from its avatar and turned back into its primordial spirit, returning to Ningfan's Dantian. Due to the limitation of his cultivation base, Ningfan barely managed to swallow a mouthful of innate true flames from the sea of red and white flames. After swallowing that mouthful of true fire, Ningfan naturally felt extremely uncomfortable. The red and white true fire that he swallowed was surging violently in his stomach, as if it wanted to escape from his body and wantonly wreak havoc in his body. Fortunately, Ningfan had already cultivated the Phoenix clan's nirvana innate skill. His internal organs that were burned by the flames could instantly recover in the raging flames. Throughout the entire process, he only felt some pain at most. As a result, that ball of true flames could not escape from his body no matter what. The sea of red and white flames around him seemed to be filled with anger. Its mission was to trap Ningfan in this place without harming his life. However, it did not expect that Ningfan would actually devour some of its flames. When the sea of flames condensed, a red and white fire bird flew out from it. The fire bird's appearance was peculiar. It did not look like a four heavens demon seed. When it flew, it could stir up waves of fire that filled the sky. His eyes were filled with ferocity. As soon as he spread his wings, he charged at Ningfan. Its speed was so fast that in the eyes of ordinary people, they could only vaguely see a flash of fire. Even with Ningfan's eyesight, it was difficult to catch the trace of the fire bird. After a brief exchange of blows, half of Ningfan's body was burned into charcoal. Fortunately, in the next moment, Ningfan's injured parts were restored to their original state within the raging flames. He was reborn from nirvana. This innate true fire has already given birth to a fire spirit. Unfortunately, this true fire has already entered my stomach. It is now mine. Even if you create a fire spirit, you can forget about taking this true fire back. Ningfan's expression turned solemn. This fire spirit's cultivation base had just reached the immortal king realm of the three eternal tribulations. Even if Ningfan's cultivation base had not been sealed, he would not be able to defeat it. Now he did not dare to face it head-on. While retreating, he activated the golden protective light of the God-exterminating shield to its limit. With Ningfan's current cultivation base, he could not summon the complete God-destroying giant form at all. He could only spread the golden light to a radius of 3 zhang around him. The red and white fire bird ignored Ningfan's protective golden light. Once again, it ferociously crashed into it. In the narrow space of the stone wall, only a ray of fire could be seen. The power of the collision directly burned off nearly 1 zhang of the golden light. Fortunately, the golden protective light that was incinerated instantly reappeared on its own. Even so, Ningfan's expression still changed. Even though his cultivation base was sealed at the moment, The god-destroying shield was extremely powerful. Even if its power was not enough, its defense was still not something that an ordinary immortal king could break through. However, this red and white firebird destroyed nearly 1 zhang of the golden light with just a casual crash. It was obvious how terrifying its strength was. When the firebird saw that its furious attack did not cause any damage to Ningfan, who was just an ant, it was instantly enraged. After shrieking 3 times in a row, the flames around its body surged and it charged at Ningfan again. This time, the firebird actually got within 1 zhang of Ningfan, burning away all of the golden light that was more than 2 zhang of his body. It seemed like it was not impossible for the firebird to break through all 3 zhang of the golden light, as long as it put in a little more effort. It definitely had the ability to injure Ningfan, who was protected by the golden light. If it really comes to that, Ningfan would either have to destroy Xinghuan to restore his cultivation base, or use his trump card like Origin Qi to directly kill the firebird. Of course, he did not plan to waste his precious life-saving trump card on a mere firebird, which was one of the 3 eternal tribulations. Similarly, he did not plan to destroy Xinghuan before achieving his purpose of coming here and attract the crazy pursuit of the Great Bay tribe. Ningfan's eyes flashed with a hint of ruthlessness. All of a sudden, he pounded his chest and spat out an arrow of blood which merged with the golden light that was protecting his body. His chi instantly weakened by a lot. However, the golden light that was protecting his body spread to a radius of 5 zhang within a short period of time, greatly increasing his defense. As a result, no matter how hard the firebird tried to crash into him, it could not completely break through the defense of the god-destroying shield. As for Ningfan, he took a healing pill and barely suppressed his injuries. Then he sat cross-legged within the layers of golden light. Under the resentful eyes of the firebird, he forcibly refined the small amount of innate true fire in his body. Ningfan could not defeat the firebird. However, it was very easy for him to deal with the innate true fire in his body. Not long after, the innate true fire was completely refined by Ningfan. The level of Ningfan's devil flames suddenly improved a lot towards the level of 12 truth flames. Ningfan did not stand up. After adjusting his breathing for a while, he still sat cross-legged on the stone ground. He patted his head and his primordial spirit flew out again. It turned into the form of a black phoenix and opened its mouth to devour the firebird through the layers of golden light. All of a sudden, the Tao of Earth Fire was once again controlled by the Black Phoenix. The firebird was startled and hurriedly tried to retreat. However, it could not break free from the Black Phoenix's control over the flames. A large amount of its innate true fire was still forcibly sucked away by the Black Phoenix. The firebird let out angry cries and crashed into the golden light even more ferociously. However, it could not break through the layers of golden light that was protecting its body. Ningfan withdrew his primordial spirit and once again refined the innate true fire in his body. He did not care about the furious firebird at all. When he finished refining the innate true fire, he devoured the innate true fire again and again, nibbling away the flames on the firebird's body little by little. As the process repeated, the chi of the firebird became weaker and weaker. It was no longer as strong as it was at the beginning. 1 day passed. The second day passed. There were only 3 days left for the martial trial. There was only 1 day left before it ended. Ningfan was trapped in the mountain and did not know what was happening in the outside world. At this moment, he only had one thought in his heart, and that was to make it in time for the martial trial no matter what. He could guess that the immortal emperor who trapped him here did not dare to harm his life. The reason why he was trapped here was to prevent him from participating in the martial trial of the southern region. First, his results were erased. Then, he was ambushed and suppressed on the eve of the martial trial. Ningfan could almost conclude that these 2 incidents were most likely done by the same immortal emperor, or multiple immortal emperors. Ningfan did not have a good impression of the so-called 5 immortal emperors of the central state. There was even a burning anger in his heart. I promised the Tianmu tribe that I would participate in the southern region competition. There is no reason for me to give up halfway. This is the first reason. Zhongyu specially instructed me to obtain the first place in the southern region. This matter is extremely important and cannot be neglected. This is the second reason. The immortal emperor who schemed against me is not willing to let me participate in the martial trial. How can I let him do as he wishes? This is the third reason. After 2 days of devouring and refining, 70% of the innate true flames here had already been devoured by Ning Fan. The red-white firebird's body had also shrunk greatly. Its chi was also extremely weak. It no longer had the chi of a third tribulation immortal king 2 days ago. Its chi was roughly at the mid-thought fragmentation realm. The firebird's eyes were no longer fierce. When it faced Ning Fan, there was a faint fear. The innate true flames cultivated by Great Emperor Lu Tuo could transform into 7 fire spirits. It was just one of the weaker ones. Now that Ning Fan had devoured 70% of its flames, it instinctively wanted to escape. How could it still dare to trap Ning Fan here? Unfortunately, it could not escape from this volcano as well. If it was at its peak condition, it could certainly escape easily with its full cultivation base. But now it was only at the mid-thought fragmentation realm. It was impossible for it to escape. I have already devoured most of the innate true flames here, but I still can't completely break through the 12th level. If I'm not mistaken, the innate true flames that trapped me here are not complete. It's just a part of the innate true flames of that immortal emperor. I'm only 1 step away from completely breaking through the 12th level. After I kill this fire bird and devour all of its fire essence, it will most likely be enough for me to break through the bottleneck of the 12th level. Ning Fan suddenly stood up and coldly stared at the fire bird that was hiding in the corner. Currently, he no longer needed to use the God-vanquishing shield to defend against the fire bird like 2 days ago. The current fire bird was just at the mid-thought fragmentation realm. With Ning Fan's current cultivation base and Feng Yinyang's ability to restrain flames, it was not difficult for him to kill it. Ning Fan could almost imagine how furious the immortal emperor, who plotted against him, would be after he killed the fire bird. Presumably, that immortal emperor would never have expected that not only did he not die from being trapped in this volcano, but he also found a way to kill the fire spirit of the innate true flames by limiting his cultivation base. Since he dared to plot against Ning Fan, he should be aware that he was going to suffer a great loss. The firebird seemed to have sensed Ning Fan's killing intent. In its despair, it suddenly gained the courage to stake everything on a single throw. It turned into a ray of fire and charged towards Ning Fan. Its speed was much slower compared to 2 days ago. Ning Fan easily saw through the firebird's route. His body suddenly exploded, turning into a pitch-black sea of flames that almost drowned the entire stone wall space. All of a sudden, the entire stone wall space was filled with the cries of the firebird as it struggled. The cries gradually subsided. After an unknown amount of time, the sea of flames disappeared and Ning Fan reappeared. Without saying a word, he sat down with his legs crossed and began to refine the enormous amount of fire essence power in his body. Almost at the same time, a furious roar was suddenly heard from the sitting Oblivion Peak in the central state. How dare you kill my 7th fire spirit? This old man will never rest until one of us is dead. Ning Fan! Ning Fan! Ning Fan! Great Emperor Lu Tuo rushed out of the underground cave with rage. When some of his disciples saw that their old ancestor was enraged, they immediately asked about the cause and effect of the incident. Great Emperor Lu Tuo's face only turned gloomy. He did not tell anyone what exactly happened. It was a humiliation. A great humiliation. He was a dignified immortal emperor. When he schemed against a young immortal venerable whose cultivation base had been sealed, he actually failed and lost one of his fire spirits. If it wasn't for his rationality, Great Emperor Lu Tuo almost wanted to go to the southern state immediately and take Ning Fan's life. Unfortunately, he could not do that. If he went to the southern state now, his scheme against Ning Fan would be exposed first. Besides, if he killed Ning Fan, he would not be able to answer to the sacred mountain at all. Hateful. Hateful. I can't kill you in the open, but I have ways to take your life in the dark. Very good. Very good. What an audacious external cultivator. Just you wait. Great Emperor Lu Tuo gradually calmed down. Instead, he revealed a cold smile and instructed his disciples beside him. How long will it take for your eldest senior brother to come out of seclusion? In reply to Ancestral Master, eldest senior brother has already entered the 6th floor of the Fire Spirit Tower. He won't be able to come out of seclusion for at least 100 years. Let him come out of seclusion earlier. Tell him that there is an item in this grand competition of the middle state that is very beneficial for him to break through to the immortal venerable realm. If he misses it, it will be a great loss. Of course, I also have some personal matters that I want him to deal with. Tell him to come and see me as soon as possible. Yes. There was only half a day left before the end of the martial test. The written test tested one's comprehension while the martial test tested the overall strength of the tribe. At this moment, not far away from the volcano, the grassland of the Summoning Wind tribe was divided into 35 areas. Each tribe of the southern state occupied a vast grassland to conduct the martial test. The test of the martial test was to hunt fire spirits. According to legend, before the herb gatherer saint died, he had shattered his own sacred flames and scattered them under the ground of the Great Bay grassland. After a long time, the broken flames turned into living beings and turned into the Fire Spirit clan. They were suppressed underground forever and could never appear on the surface. Naturally, the seal of the saint was not something that ordinary people could covet. Countless cultivators had tried to sneak into the ground of the Great Bay grassland to search for the broken sacred flame sealed by the saint, but to no avail. Later on, a Saint Mountain Celestial Emperor found a strange talisman in the Saint Mountain Mausoleum. After activating it, he accidentally summoned an extremely powerful immortal Emperor Fire Spirit from the Great Bay grassland. He was caught off guard and was almost killed by the Fire Spirit. Shocked, the Saint Mountain Celestial Emperor summoned a few more Celestial Emperors and fought hard for many days before they finally killed the Fire Spirit. They also obtained a fire crystal from the Fire Spirit. After refining it, their cultivation of the Fire Tao improved greatly. After tasting the Fire Spirit, the Saint Mountain Celestial Emperor tried to imitate the talisman of the saint in his memory and activated it again. He could still summon fire spirits from anywhere in the Great Bay grassland. After killing the Fire Spirit, there was still a fire crystal. Unfortunately, without the talisman personally drawn by the saint, it was impossible to summon an immortal Emperor Fire Spirit. At most, it could only summon fire spirits with true immortal cultivation. If a Celestial King or Celestial Venerable drew a talisman, the Fire Spirit's cultivation level would be even lower. If a Broken Thought cultivator drew a talisman, they wouldn't be able to summon any fire spirits at all. The Saint Mountain Celestial Emperor studied the talisman several times before they figured out the secret of the talisman. It turned out that the talisman was a summoning talisman created by the Saint Mountain Celestial Emperor. It was specifically used to summon fire spirits from underground in the grassland. In the past, the first round of the tomb-seizing martial test would be to hunt fire spirits. First of all, the fire spirits in the Great Bay grassland were almost inexhaustible. When hunting, they would be summoned as soon as they were summoned, so there was no need to prepare too much. Second of all, after killing the fire spirits, one could obtain fire crystals. These fire crystals were mostly of very low quality, and were dispensable to the ancient monsters. However, if they were given to the tribes below, they could greatly improve the fire Tao of the low-level cultivators of the tribes. It was a very good reward for the martial test. Of course, there was a flaw in this talisman, which was that it could only be drawn by an ancient celestial venerable. Every time it was drawn, it would consume a lot of energy, so it couldn't be mass-produced. Fortunately, there would only be a tomb-seizing war once every 1,000 years. After 1,000 years of accumulation, the Saint Mountain Celestial Emperor was able to cope with the consumption of the tomb-seizing war. In this southern border minor competition, each tribe was given 50 low-grade fire summoning talismans, 20 mid-grade fire summoning talismans and 5 high-grade fire summoning talismans. The low-grade fire summoning talisman could be used once to summon a fire spirit of Crossing Truth Realm randomly. As for which stage of Crossing Truth Realm it was, it would depend on luck. It could be an early stage Crossing Truth Realm fire spirit, or a peak stage Crossing Truth Realm fire spirit. The troublesome thing was that no matter what stage Crossing Truth Realm it was, killing one fire spirit would count as 10 points. The mid-grade fire summoning talisman could summon a shedding void fire spirit. Killing one fire spirit would give 100 points. The high-grade fire summoning talisman could summon a fragmentary thought fire spirit. Killing one fire spirit would give 1,000 points. Each tribe could decide how to use the fire summoning talisman. For a weak tribe like the Tiemu tribe, they didn't have the shedding void fire spirit. They usually only dared to summon crossing truth fire spirit. They never dared to use the mid-grade and high-grade fire summoning talisman. Once a shedding void fire spirit or fragmentary thought fire spirit was summoned, it would undoubtedly be a calamity for the weak Tiemu tribe. It should be known that the summoned fire spirit was extremely ferocious and would kill anyone it saw. The unused fire summoning talismans would have to be returned to the saint envoys who were supervising the minor competition after the martial competition ended. If each tribe used up all their fire summoning talismans, they could go to other tribes and snatch the fire spirits of other tribes. They could also increase their points. The Tiemu tribe was extremely sullen. They only got 1 point in the written exam. Until now, they still didn't get any points in the martial competition. Until now, the Tiemu tribe had summoned a total of 11 crossing truth fire spirits. All of them were snatched and killed by other tribes. As for the 12th crossing truth fire spirit that they summoned, no one came to snatch it because it was a fire spirit that was half a step into the shedding void realm. To the weak Tiemu tribe cultivators, it was simply a calamity. Even if the 19 Tiemu tribe cultivators joined forces, they were still unable to defeat that fire spirit that was half a step into the shedding void realm. Instead, more than 10 of them were seriously injured by that fire spirit. At this moment, the remaining 2 Dujin cultivators of the Tiemu tribe were still leading the remaining 5 Tiemu Fate Immortals to hold on. These 2 people were dressed as shamans, and their cultivation was only at the early stage of Dujin. Naturally, they didn't dare to fight the fire spirit head-on. Instead, they used the formation set up in advance to tangle with the fire spirit. However, the fire spirit was too powerful, and the Tiemu tribe's cultivators were getting fewer and fewer, causing flaws to appear in the formation. Soon, the fire spirit caught a flaw and pounced on one of the Dujin cultivators. That Dujin was careless and half of his body was burned by the fire spirit. Only his primordial spirit escaped by a hair's breadth. However, he was seriously injured by the fire spirit and couldn't fight anymore. He had no choice but to withdraw from the martial competition. In this way, only the last Dujin cultivator of the Tiemu tribe was still holding on. It was even more difficult to maintain the formation. The situation was very dangerous. Among the remaining 5 Tiemu Fate Immortals, there were people who were seriously injured by the fire spirit and withdrew from the martial competition. In the end, only Dujin was left in the Tiemu tribe. The formation that trapped the fire spirit originally required many people to work together to activate. Now that there was only one person left, it had completely lost its effect. This Dujin cultivator's name was Satung. At this moment, his eyes were obviously filled with despair. However, there was more anger and resentment. Not far away, a few tribes had sent out peak Dujin cultivators to snatch the weak fire spirits of the Tiemu tribe. Every time the Tiemu tribe summoned an early or mid-Dujin cultivator, these people would come and snatch it. When the Tiemu tribe unluckily summoned a half-step shedding Kong cultivator, these people just stood by and watched. They didn't intend to interfere at all, allowing the Tiemu tribe members to be severely injured by the fire spirit. If even Satung was seriously injured by the fire spirit and withdrew from the martial competition, the overall result of the Tiemu tribe today would be the lowest in history. They would end up with a 1-point disadvantage. Of course, the Tiemu tribe still had another participant who had yet to withdraw. However, Ningfan was currently being suppressed under the volcano. No one thought that Ningfan could break out of the seal and make it in time for the martial competition under the premise that his cultivation base was limited. The tomb-seizing battle of the Tiemu tribe was about to end. This Satung is already at his limit. Even if he has an acquired magical treasure to protect himself, his magic power can no longer sustain him. In less than 100 breaths, he will definitely be defeated. A peak Dujin cultivator from the White Ghost tribe said with certainty. This time, the TMU tribe will most likely leave the tomb seizing battle with a total score of 1 point. I wonder if Great Emperor Lu Tua will remember our contribution when he learns about this? A Peak Duzhen cultivator, who participated in the seizing of the TMU tribe's fire spirits, said with anticipation. He was from the corpse preservation tribe. What a pity! If that external cultivator surnamed Ning was here, the TMU tribe's result would most likely be higher. A Peak Duzhen cultivator from the Evil Goat tribe side. He stayed near the TMU tribe not to snatch the fire spirits. Instead, it was the young master's order. If the cultivators of the TMU tribe were severely injured by the fire spirits, this person must save them. If it wasn't for this person, the cultivators of the TMU tribe wouldn't only be severely injured and retreat. Many of them would have died. The strength of the half-step empty fire spirit wasn't something that ordinary people could deal with. I really don't understand what your Evil Goat tribe is thinking. It's fine if you don't suppress the TMU tribe, but you actually sent people to protect the cultivators of the TMU tribe. Your young master is indeed the #1 idiot in the southern border. Don't tell me he doesn't know that his actions will most likely enrage that person in the central state? A Peak Duzhen cultivator from the Black Mountain tribe sneered. This Peak Duzhen cultivator from the Evil Goat tribe didn't argue. He also felt that the young master's decision was inappropriate. However, due to his loyalty to the young master, he still carried out the young master's order and protected the cultivators of the TMU tribe. Seeing that the last cultivator of the TMU tribe, Sa Tung, was about to be severely injured by the fire spirits, this Peak Duzhen cultivator from the Evil Goat tribe sighed slightly and prepared to save the cultivators. Suddenly, his gaze changed and revealed a shocked expression. It was the sound of a landslide coming from the direction of the volcano. What happened? Could it be that the external cultivator surnamed Ning who was suppressed under the volcano can escape? Even the Saint Envoy couldn't break the seal of the mountain. Unless that external cultivator surnamed Ning destroys the ring and recovers his cultivation, he won't be able to escape. Could it be that he destroyed the ring? This is a heinous crime in our Great Bay. On the grassland, cries of surprise sounded one after another. At this moment, there were only 2 cultivators near the volcano. One of them was Xianyu Chun and the other was Duo Lan. Duo Lan and Xianyu Chun had been waiting near the volcano for a long time. Duo Lan was Ning Fan's soul lock slave. Before Ning Fan took the initiative to remove the soul seal, she and Ning Fan had gone through thick and thin together. If something happens to Ning Fan, her life would also be in danger. Now that Ning Fan was suppressed under the mountain, Duo Lan did not know who was scheming against him. She also did not know if Ning Fan was in danger in the mountain. Naturally, she was somewhat worried. Staying near the volcano, how could she have the mood to pay attention to the progress of the martial trial in the southern region? Xianyu Chun, on the other hand, was interesting. He directly withdrew from the martial trial and took out an iron shovel magic treasure. His expression was extremely anxious. He actually wanted to flatten the mountain and hollow it out to save Ning Fan. This infuriated his father to no end. The leader of the Evil Yang tribe originally planned to rely on Xianyu Chun's soul combination technique to lead the cultivators of the Evil Yang tribe to achieve a good result. It was highly possible that they could even compete for the first place. However, who would have thought that this rash kid actually withdrew from the martial trial? He was even stupid enough to use a shovel to dig the volcano that even the Saint Apostle couldn't break open. This subordinate can't stand it anymore. It's fine if the young tribe leader is mischievous in the past, but he actually did it in the martial trial as well. He didn't put the interests of the Evil Yang tribe in his heart at all. You should know that we have prepared for 1,000 years for this competition in the southern region. After obtaining the first place in the southern region, we will head to the central region and participate in the second round of tomb seizing. For this competition, we have made many plans that revolved around the young tribe leader's soul combination technique. However, the young tribe leader actually withdrew from the martial trial. Not only that, he even sent a peak crossing truth cultivator to save Tamu. This action not only depleted the strength of our tribe, but also offended Great Emperor Lu Tua. Why didn't the tribe leader stop this? A few elders of the evil Yang tribe questioned. The tribe leader of the evil Yang tribe did not speak. He was also disappointed with Xin Yuchun's action of ignoring the interests of the tribe. He even had the thought of abolishing his position as the young tribe leader. On the other hand, he felt even more pity for this son. What he felt pity for was this foolish child's pure heart. His mother was crushed to death by the volcano divine ability of the rock flame cultivator. The tribe leader of the evil Yang tribe suddenly opened his mouth. He seemed to be talking to himself, but also seemed to be talking to the few elders of the evil Yang tribe. There was a trace of grief on his face. That woman was Xin Yuchun's mother and also the woman he loved the most. Tribe leader, what are you saying? We asked the tribe leader to abolish Xin Yuchun's position as the young tribe leader. We asked the tribe leader not to avoid this matter and change the topic. A few elders said in dissatisfaction. The tribe leader of the evil Yang tribe did not pay attention to these elders. He continued to look at Xin Yuchun, who was sweating profusely as he dug the mountain. This child ignored the interests of the tribe. He was not fit to be the young tribe leader. However, this child had a pure heart that was different from other cultivators. This point was the most valuable in the cultivation world, where interests were paramount. Outsiders only knew that the tribe leader of the evil Yang tribe had taken a fancy to Xin Yuchun's cultivation talent, and made an exception to let a foolish person become the young tribe leader of the evil Yang tribe. However, they did not know that what the tribe leader of the evil Yang tribe had taken a fancy to was that pure heart. Under the suppressing volcano, Duo Lan was speechless as she looked at Xin Yuchun, who was bitterly digging the mountain. She naturally did not plan to help this kind of almost futile action. The suppressing volcano did not have soil, only stones. Moreover, they were not ordinary stones. They were stones formed by divine ability and were abnormally firm. Xin Yuchun, who was only at the life immortal realm, was holding a magic treasure that had not even entered the post-celestial realm. Naturally, he would not be able to dig through the mountain rocks. There were already many gaps in his iron shovel. His hands had also been shaken to the point that they were dripping with blood from the recoil of digging the mountain. He could not feel the burning pain in his hands. He only anxiously dug the mountain. Even if he could not dig out even a single piece of rock, he did not give up. There was a trace of confusion and grief in his eyes. At this moment, what he wanted to dig up wasn't the volcano that suppressed Ning Fan, but the mountain that killed his mother in the past. Can't dig, can't dig, can't dig. Why can't I dig? Why? I don't believe it, I don't believe it. Bang. The iron shovel finally could not bear the burden and broke into two. Xin Yuchun threw down the iron shovel like a madman and directly knelt on the mountain rock. His hands were badly mangled as he dug at the hard mountain rock. Can't dig, can't dig, can't dig. Why can't I dig? I don't believe it. Xin Yuchun suddenly roared towards the sky. Blood and tears flowed out from his eyes. His mouth muttered a word. Mother, mother, I'm sorry. This child is useless. I can't save you, I am sorry. I'm sorry, rumble. The suppressing volcano suddenly shook violently. There were even sounds of collapsing coming from the inside of the mountain. The loud rumbling instantly attracted the attention of all the cultivators here. It also caused Xin Yuchun's eyes to gradually wake up. Bewitched, bewitched again. Mother is already dead. The person trapped in the volcano is not mother, but master. Master actually escaped. Xin Yuchun wiped the blood and tears, sweeping away the sadness on his face. He suddenly laughed towards the sky. Worthy of being the master that he fancied. Even being suppressed by an immortal emperor, he could still escape. He, Xin Yuchun, did not misjudge him. Bystanders could not see that this was a divine ability used by an immortal emperor, but he, Xin Yuchun, could see it. Because he personally felt the terror of the suppressing volcano, and because of his mother's matter, he researched a lot about the suppressing volcano's divine ability. Because he could see this, he was worried about Ning Fan's safety and was shocked by Ning Fan's escape. The volcano's collapse became more and more serious. Xin Yuchun did not dare to stay on the volcano any longer and flew away. The moment he was far away, the entire volcano suddenly split open like a gourd and exploded. A white-clothed figure with a soaring flame rushed out from the volcano and straight into the clouds. It was Ning Fan who escaped. There were many cultivators with keen eyesight here. They felt the flame aura on Ning Fan's body and sucked in a cold breath. It's actually the 12 Shades True Flame. This external cultivator surnamed Ning is quite amazing. Looking at the entire Great Bay, not many people have such a flame. This person, a mere external cultivator, actually has it. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.